States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we could have the reading of the mission statement, please.
Richmond Community Schools guide students on pathways of learning to a future of limitless possibilities.
Thank you. And now the reading of the vision statement.
Richmond Community Schools, a collaborative community nurturing mind, body, and spirit to prepare students for lives of choice, purpose, and service.
Thank you. And now celebrations, Dr. Wright.
President Barton, trustees, good evening. Well, as well as our esteemed citizens and cabinet members, I'm going to ask that Mrs. Bridget Hazelbaker, our coordinator of communications and marketing, join the podium. And Mrs. Hazelbaker, I'm going to ask that we flip-flop the schedule and have our science fair regional winners be honored first.
Sorry.
No, it's not a problem. I talked with the youngster. He has his speech ready. He's ready.
Okay. Just kidding. Good evening, good afternoon. Hamburg Program Building had 2 students competing at the East Central Regional Science Fair at Bell State last month. Nadia Boschke, I practiced too, I'm so sorry, won first place in Earth and Environmental Science in the Ball State University Department of Environment, Geology, and Natural Resources Award. And then Erebus Wilson won first place in Biomedical and Health Sciences. So if those 2 can please pop up here for a quick second, we'll have some partners ask you some questions. But both students will be heading to the Hoosier Science and Engineering Fair in Indianapolis on April 6th. So congratulations to both of you. Stand like right here, just so they can say hi to you.
So could you tell us about your projects? I'd like to know like what they were about and what your discoveries were.
So mine was old versus new toothpaste, which old toothpaste being baking soda peroxide and new just being any modern toothpaste that you have.
Okay.
And my research showed that the older toothpaste baking soda peroxide won at whitening and preventing stains.
Okay.
We changed.
So my project was basically it focused on how we can use the pulp and rind from lemons to conduct electricity, because when I did my experiment, we found that the pulp and rind did better than the juice in conducting electricity, knowing the fact that lemons can conduct electricity as a whole. And so when we found out that we can use waste as electricity, we knew that we can use it as an alternative energy source, and we can save and conserve energy.
And so I'm curious to know what drove you to select those particular topics, those particular research projects.
So I chose that topic because I'm really fascinated on how it's not just coal and other things underground that can conduct electricity, but actually when you put zinc and copper into a leaven, how it can conduct electricity, and a cathode and anode and all those fun stuff. And so the fact that a whole lemon itself could conduct electricity inspired me, but I didn't want it to do just that. I wanted to see can the different parts of the lemon conduct electricity, which led me to figuring out that we can use waste and we can save energy and things like that.
Oh, so I
And you all got that.
watch.
Yeah.
Didn't know.
Proud to like I said.
I am trusting that everything you said was accurate.
Don't try this at home.
On YouTube, I watch a bunch of dentist and stuff test out dental products, and I wanted to see if what they say is actually true.
Okay, and so I'm curious to know, once you all obtained your first place finishes, when you all went back to school that next day and were celebrated by your peers, how did that make you feel?
It made me feel more welcome, that everybody knew that I did something great, and it made me appreciate that everybody was aware that I was doing things, and it made me think.
They made me feel more like a champion.
This is the night of champions. You're surrounded by other champions as well, as we'll soon find out. That's great. Other questions?
If you would, before you leave, see Miss Bolzer right there so you can get an application. She's coming, future leader teachers in Richmond Community Schools, okay? Thank you very much.
And if I may ask one last question to Member Stevens' remark regarding education, the sweet science and the craft and the delicacy that comes with being a teacher. We know that you all are here with your parents, and can you ask that your parents stand up so we can give them a round of applause as well? We definitely know it's a very proud moment for you all, but as fellow educators, I'm curious to know what type of impact has your teachers, and one in particular this week today, Ms. Washington, what type of impact has she had on you all during this experience?
So she really pushed me to do more than I should be doing, and so to push myself to do the best that I can. And I think that without my parents and my teachers' encouragement, I wouldn't have been able to be here.
Okay.
So she also went out of her way to make the science fair club so we could actually end up going to the regionals, because it wasn't just like a school science fair.
So she went above and beyond.
Yeah.
Yes, just like as Ms. Washington has done for many years. And so, Ms. Washington, if you don't mind standing, we also would like to acknowledge. I know that she typically would prefer not to, but thank you. Other questions, comments? All right. Well, again, thank you all for being here. Thank you for contributing to the success of Richmond Community Schools and definitely of Hibbert.
Good luck.
Yes.
All right, next we have to make you guys. Richmond High School's Red Devil bowling teams were recently crowned the state runners-up at the Indiana State Bowling Meet last month. I would like to have the team and the coaches please come up to the podium to answer some questions from our school board members and our cabinet members. And since you guys are a little taller, you guys can stand back. No, you're good. You're good.
And if you all could spread out, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Spread all that fine hardware out.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Gentlemen, welcome. You all have been here before, just as you all had been just a few weeks at the state finals before. And so welcome back. We're yet again, as this continues to be an annual affair and an annual occurrence, recognizing your greatness and your excellence. If you all could, just starting with the fresh fish, as I have dubbed him, young freshman, if you see him throw that bowling ball, it's as if someone stole something from him. And he really is trying to get all of his anger back. If you can just share your first and last name, your year in school, and then we'll come back down with a few other questions.
Jacob Berninger, and it's my freshman year.
So, Richmond High School.
Could I interrupt a moment?
So,
Please speak out loudly because you're away from the mic, and I think it's very important for not only us but the people who are watching to know who you are.
All right.
And that's a great point. We are. Oh, gentlemen, if we were at the bowling alley, that wouldn't even get a 2. Let's try it again. We are. Yeah, so let's stay in that octave. Mr. Shaw, try it again.
My name is Nathan Shaw. Sophomore. I'm glad to be on this team for sure. It brought me, and it's going to confer me as the years go on. I know I didn't start freshman year, but I did league for that first year. Coming here and playing with the team and stuff like that. Play with my brother. That's just about to graduate, so that's a blessing for sure.
And you got another big brother as a champion in his own right. Another older brother as a champion as well. And so, Mr. Whiting, share with us your first last name.
I'm Bryson Whiting. I'm in 10th grade.
10th grade.
I'm Bruce McDaniel, and I'm in 11th grade.
Joe.
I'm Bailey Ballinger, and I'm a senior. Also, Shaw, I'm graduating.
Yes, you are. Congratulations to that. Absolutely.
Bryce Glidden, senior.
Logan Brewer, I'm a junior. Nathan Barrow, and I'm a junior. Coach Mike Higgins, my 19th year coaching an awesome group of young men. Coach Maitland, Jeff Maitland, and assisted Coach Higgins for the last 6 years.
So I don't want to dominate the discussion, and they know that I have a tendency of doing so. Let's just run through a few things in 30 seconds. Bowling lane, 42 boards, 60 feet. Bowling ball, either polyester, urethane, resin. Baker versus individuals. Baker's is team concept bowling. Individuals.
Touching up on a little bit of his knowledge.
Hey, I was studying you all. You don't realize I was taking so many notes. Easy, baby.
Teammates too.
Yeah, no doubt. One hand versus two hand, two fingers versus one. Oil changes over the course of the mat. Over the course of the meet, the oil would change in the lane to make it so that every time you go up, every time, not just once, but every time you go up, it's a new lane you're dealing with. Graphite also can push the oil to particular areas. Let's see, $250. Average bowling ball goes about $250. Another $200 to get them the holes drilled. You all have Whited, how many bowling balls do you have? How many do you own?
I have like 6.
6. Baby Buddha, how many bowling balls do you all have in your own?
Like combined,
Combined. More than 100, I'm sure.
I'd say 30.
30?
I personally own 6, but we have over 60 bowling balls.
Over 60 in the house? Brewer?
About 32.
32. Farrell?
No West County.
12, yeah. And so, again, you can see $250 shoes. The shoes that you all sport, very expensive. The sleeves that go on your wrist, the sleeves that go on your shoes as you're walking down the lane to keep the surface so that you can slide and really get the pressure. Let me also just highlight the pressure. We all are particular athletes and participating in extracurriculars. A free throw, game-winning free throw in basketball for a championship is a huge shot. That's a pressure-filled shot. Last at bat, down 2 strikes, 3 balls, big home run drive, golf swing. That pressure that athletes and other performing artists, whether it be a stage show, the pressure they experience, which is few and far between in one's career, that's equivalent to what you all experience every time you go up. Every time you go up with a changing lane. Sense of family, the camaraderie that you all have, the involvement and inclusive nature. The young ladies are not here tonight because this is to honor our boys and you all's state championship runner-up. State championship runner-up. And I know you all were first seated and just very proud, but nevertheless, the sense of family, the collaborative nature that you all continue to bring in what you do is truly remarkable. The county, Centerville, Nettle Creek, Lincoln, Hagerstown, you all embrace one another. Inclusive, the passion, the pride, the love. As you all can see, I have just totally appreciated you all allowing me to encamp and embed with you all and the pride that you all express. I came to several of you all's practices, and although you didn't let me roll the ball down the lane, that's probably a good thing. You all hopefully understand and know what we were trying to accomplish and what you all ultimately accomplished in the name of Richmond Community Schools. Your parents, the loved ones that are with you, let's give them a round of applause. The pressure that you all have every time you're up there, your parents are with you, and you should see them. You should see their responses. Mr. Ballinger, your father, he is as anxious as they come. And he's what, 6'11", it seems. I'm only 6'4" myself.
Why
But,
he's not here, the doorway.
because the doorway, yeah, no doubt about it. But the pressure that your parents also carry, but also most importantly, the pride with so much success is just truly remarkable. So, board, I turn them over to you all for questions and comments. Forgive me, but they have really and continue to represent our city quite well. Oh.
I'm not near as knowledgeable as Dr. Wright and I'm aware of bumpers that can go up and help my game to that extent. But I did get to see one of your games and I agree. I mean, the excitement and the camaraderie and not just you guys encouraging each other as you played, but you encourage your opponents. I mean, it was exciting to talk to your parents too and see you guys play. So congratulations. You guys worked hard and it shows. So.
We're very excited for you and for the school. And I just want to say thank you to Coach Higgins for making us aware, like, hey, just a reminder, this is what's coming up. So, you know, whoever can be there, we'd love to have you. So I appreciate the invitation. So
Well, very proud of these young men.
Coach Higgins, Coach Maitland. Obviously, it's been a long run for you, and it's not going to stop today because I see there's a really nice pipeline, you know, brother to brother and everything. So we're very proud of what you have done, not only to represent bowling but also to represent Richmond Community Schools. Hopefully, someday, very soon, you will become that recognized HSAA sanctioned. Um, sport, keeping that up there. But in the meantime, continue to do what you're doing. Encourage everybody else because you really are models of what we want to stand for, and that is success, not only out there in the bowling alleys, but also in the classroom. So we really appreciate what you do.
And Member Stevens, to your point, we are meeting next week with coaches along with Miss Linda Isaacs, who couldn't be here this evening, but we know that she is a staunch advocate. Our board, who's a very courageous board and has been leading fearlessly here over the last, since I've been in this role and for many more years, have been adamant that we are going to take a honest look at things throughout our athletic and extracurricular offerings. One of the things that we have said to you all each year is that we acknowledge your greatness and we want to continue to work toward trying to make it so that that many more folks come behind. Because through this sport, through your participation, again, that Richmond on your chest, you represent it well. Coaches, anything to leave us with?
If you don't mind, I'd like to give a few highlights. Give me just about 2 minutes to talk about these young men. This team is historical in what they have accomplished, not just this year, but my 3 seniors for the last 4 years. 192 teams, boys teams, start out the state in October. These 3 seniors have been on 2 state runner-up teams in that 4 years. We're 4-time defending sectional champions, 4-time defending Mid-Indiana Conference champions, 2 regional runner-ups. Semi-state this year, we were in last place out of 16 teams halfway through that 12-game qualifying. Wow. These guys could give up. Last 6 games, we led. That was the throat punch that these guys needed to realize we can do this. And that's one of the reasons that we were so successful at the state championship. Sadly, we didn't finish. The only thing missing from this team's a state title. But that doesn't take anything away from the accomplishments that they have done. And I wouldn't trade these boys for a state title. I'm proud to say that I am their coach.
Richmond, anything, sir?
I echo that. I mean, like, just working with these kids, they're all great kids. You know, we all make sure their grades are good. You know, we make sure they're doing what they need to be doing outside of the bowling alley. And, you know, when they come into the bowling alley, they're ready to work it. And they work hard. They do. And they've earned everything. I mean, there's nothing that's been given to these kids. They've earned it all.
That's one of the things I missed in my notes that I didn't say was I am proud to be their coach, but I'm more proud of the young men that they have become. Off the lanes it's nice when I send an email to the school and I get an email back stating, you're good, they all met grades. I don't have to worry about that. And that, like I say, off the lanes, they're outstanding young men. And we're the only team in the state of Indiana that have qualified for the state finals the last 3 seasons. We are going to nationals in June in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. June 8th, 9th, and 10th to represent. First and foremost, we're representing Richmond, but we will be representing the state of Indiana as well, because you have to qualify for your state finals in order to qualify for nationals.
I'm sure that that rowdy group of parents are going to be right there with those cookies. Right here.
Every tournament we go to, we hear Man, them Richmond parents are just loud. Yes.
I see you all left Brandon at home tonight, and that's probably a good thing. Yeah, because he gets a little excited.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation and the recognition. These boys deserve everything.
So we have a charge, and like I said, we're going to do our very best as a administrative team to try and not only acknowledge the amazing things that you all are doing, but so many amazing things that are also occurring in other extracurricular areas throughout our community school system. But
One last thing. We did have one last tournament this weekend that these two juniors qualified for is the all-state tournament. Logan makes the step ladder, which means you qualify. Both 3 games you qualify. You get 4. You got 4th place. Made the first game with step ladder. Mind telling what you shot? First game? That's all you. So you guys might have remembered seeing, earlier in the season, Logan shot a 300.
Yes.
You guys see that?
Yes.
Well, he shot another one this weekend.
Yeah.
Wins that game, of course. Bowls the 2 seed. Wins that game. Then bowls the 2024 Indiana State champion in singles this year in the championship match at All-State. It was rough to start out with, but talk about pressure.
yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
go back and watch that All-State match. Go ahead and watch the whole thing. It's a great show. Okay, but Logan has to throw 2 strikes in the 10th frame to win. But if he strikes the first ball and then spares, they go into a roll-off. You don't want to go into a roll-off with the state champ. Now Logan just closes it out in 10th frame, and he takes home $500 scholarship for winning All-State.
So in closing, that's a great segue to close, because what you just mentioned is something that we as educators, as teachers, we experience. Everyone that has gone through school believes that they can do what our amazing teachers do, because they experience it on the student side. Because everyone has probably been to a bowling alley in their life and has rolled a bowling ball down, they think that it's easy. They don't realize that UO's competition typically starts at 7:30 a.m. and typically concludes around 6 p.m. And throughout the entire day, you're doing nothing but rolling and or sitting and waiting and rolling some more. And so the athleticism it takes and the skill set, because one false move and it could be a gutter ball. And that's when Mrs. Brunton and I will need those bumpers. Congratulations. We'll definitely be in touch soon. Fellas, continue to represent us and represent your families and represent the city just as you have. Continue to be great. We're going to be right behind you. Thank you.
Madam President, I ask to be excused for a little bit. I have an obligation, with my department. I will be back shortly, as quickly as I can.
Thank you.
So.
Put out the bat signal for you.
So thank you.
I know. That's what it
Yeah.
is.
As their accident announcers, give me my passion this year's bowling team is they do some amazing.
Hey, at this time, we will suspend the regular business meeting of the Board of Trustees and declare the public hearing open on the proposed projects. The next item on the agenda is for the board to hold a project and preliminary hearing on the proposed projects. If you are interested in speaking at the hearing, please make sure you have signed the sign-in sheet at the back of the room, which should include your name and address. After a presentation by the administration and its advisors, there will be an opportunity for the public to make comments about the projects. At the hearing, we will ask that each person limit their comments to 5 minutes and that the topic be limited to the proposed projects under consideration. The notice of this preliminary determination hearing was published as legally required. The first preliminary determination hearing was held on February 28th, 2024. At this time, I'll ask that Superintendent Dr. Wright or Attorney Mr. Cross explain the purpose of this hearing.
So not still Attorney Cross, Thunder, Attorney Cross, mindset.
There actually are 2 public hearings that we'll be having tonight, but they can be combined into one, but they're 2 separate purposes. The first is commonly referred to as a 1028 hearing. That was the bill number that was enacted back years ago And essentially, it says anytime a board is going to spend $1 million or more on a given building, it must have a public hearing to allow the public to hear the educational benefits that will be attained, the needs that are being met, and how it will improve, if you will, the educational environment. As alluded to in President Rutten's initial statement, we're also talking about financing these projects by borrowing, which in this case means the issuance of lease financing bonds. And so we've had one preliminary determination hearing to discuss the nature of the projects, the nature of the financings, and the potential tax implications for that. It all requires a second such hearing, and that is what tonight is about. Following tonight's hearing, the board may then consider entertaining resolutions to approve the projects, to preliminarily determine to issue the debt, the bonds, and then finally we will again do a reimbursement resolution based upon the more defined scope of the borrowing. So with that, unless there are questions, I would turn it back to the chair.
We will now hear from Dr. Wright and Chief Financial Officer Jamie Bolzer about the process of determining and communicating the project to the community and the need for the project.
Mrs. Bowles, if you don't mind sharing the determining process you use, that'd be good. Thank you.
So we originally began with discussions in August of last year, and then further those in the budget hearing and on September 27th of 2023. Just looking at diversifying our ability to care for the upkeep of our 11 school buildings, while also trying to meet the needs of making sure we had the available resources to provide direct in-classroom support. And we had an ability to be able to competitively compete with keeping, attracting, and retaining our professional certified teaching staff. So this, we began looking at that. We began then putting some studies together during that process. We took a look at our property tax base, looked at our circuit breaker analysis. We also looked at comparable data, not only to our peers geographically, but within size, and then also the state average. In doing so, we found we were the lowest taxing rate in the state of Indiana. And we had a lot of, and were faced with losing a lot of circuit breaker, which is what helps support the operational side of our buildings. So what's happening is a additional source of pressure on our education fund to help support the operations fund. So just trying to rebalance our resources and our ability to care for the upkeep of all of those things. So we continued the discussion at the budget adoption hearing on October 18th. We then began putting together the project listing, which we found really quickly could be very expansive. So we started doing that at the November 20th meeting. Then followed on the December 13th meeting, further project discussion as we began to pinpoint that dollar amount and trying to find what that good balance is. And making sure that we were being good stewards of our taxpayers' dollars and wanting to make sure that it didn't have an adverse effect on our taxpayers. And we'll hear more of that after Beth. So we finally fine-tuned some of those preliminary numbers at the January 10th meeting so we could further provide the expansive property tax analysis. And then we held, as Mr. Cross mentioned, the first preliminary hearing of determination at our last February business meeting to begin talking about a lot of the things that you will see repeated again today. So we will go through more of an overview of the projects that we're looking at, the bond issuance and the financing plan as we go through this. But that's what has gotten us from yesterday to today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We will now hear from the COO, Karen Scalp, about how the proposed projects meet the needs as described by David and Dr.
Okay, I have to take to the podium because I can't use the clicker. So just to quickly refresh what we've talked about in prior meetings for the purposes of our public and the board, this evening we'll go over the plans that we have for facilities as we utilize these funds if they're approved. So the rationale is basically three things. One, to improve and enhance educational areas or environments, catch up deferred maintenance and look ahead to proactive maintenance throughout the district, and then shift expenses from operations to debt service. The educational impact is planned to improve comfort levels in learning environments, provide students with inviting, fun, outdoor learning environments that also provide neighborhood play areas, improve aesthetics district-wide, and also provide routine maintenance, timely replacements, and updates to the facilities needed for extracurricular activities in some cases, and PE. Expected issuance. So Mrs. Bolser has already reviewed some of the information on the financial side. This is just a quick overview. The total issuance is expected to be about 20 million. Of that, between 7 and 10% usually will run for soft costs. Funding for projects look to be about $18.6 million. The funds that are not needed for soft costs will be reallocated to projects, and then project costs that come in higher or lower will be reallocated amongst those project areas that we have contained in the issuance as funds allow. So we have basically 4 structural areas as a part of the project. The first being infrastructure, the next being mechanical systems, classrooms, and then athletic areas. Infrastructure, we're looking at parking lot and bus lane asphalt repair and replacement, and that'll take place district-wide. Fencing will take place district-wide, whether that's painting, stretching, or replacements. Playgrounds, looking at painting, updating, and some replacements and partial replacements at Baxter, Star, and Vale. Roofing and facade work, which is masonry work at Richmond High School and Test Intermediate. The mechanical systems that we will be looking at are at Dennis and at Baxter, and it does include heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems. We expect to do some restroom updates as funds allow, district-wide, however, primarily at RHS. And then looking at replacing or adding public address systems throughout the corporation. I'll just note that we began this process at RHS this year due to some maintenance needs, and it has dramatically made a super positive difference to the environment there, as well as just being a need. Seeing this district-wide has me really excited because our buildings will see such a good difference as they're able to communicate throughout their buildings and just outside their buildings. So that is a big change for us, and it is a very positive one as we look at not only just classroom environments, but security and safety as well. And then the last piece is, if funds allow, installing security cameras throughout the corporation. All right, classroom and aesthetics. So flooring, painting, and general updates in classrooms would occur district-wide as funds allow. Replacing the lockers on all 3 floors of the high school is something that we've needed for a while, so that would also take place. The applied skills areas, looking at the true use of space, replacing flooring, updating walls, looking at those areas and passively how we can use them better, make them function better for the teachers and the students there, and looking at some updates at the high school and intermediate levels in middle schools. As far as athletics, I'm going to also say that PE is a big part of this because not only do we use these areas for athletics, but our PE classes actually use them very regularly. Our tennis courts, the football field, the softball field, and the track have all been used on an almost daily basis as the weather allows. And sometimes when the weather you would think doesn't allow, you can always use turf. So I have seen them out as flurries are going on, not very often, but sometimes. So it does allow us to use those facilities all year round for our classes. So with athletics, we will look at turfing the high school field, looking at updating the baseball and softball fields, and then resurfacing the track and exploring adding lane. as well as updating or rebuilding the RHS tennis courts. And then the expected timelines, and this is something that is, I want to stress, right now, the construction field is overwhelmed with work. And so knowing that we want to be realistic in when we can get this work done, knowing that vendors have more work than there are people to do it, we just want to make sure that the public knows that this may take a little longer to complete than what we would on average see when you issue debt. So on average, it's 2 years, you take it out, you finish your projects, you're done. During this time, we are looking at the possibility of final completion looking more like 26. That's simply because there's too much work for the number of people available to do it. Equipment delivery is also something that we have to think through. Supply chain, sometimes it's 12 months on HVAC equipment. Sometimes it's 18 months. So you can't even get a project started for a while in some cases. So I just wanted to make sure that our public knows we're going to do everything we can to bring it in during that 24-month period. However, it is highly likely that this project plan will take a little longer than maybe what we've seen in the past. So we look for the spring to do all of the documenting and the paperwork and the approvals and the work that the board has to do, with the thinking that closing would happen in early summer. And then we do final completion of projects starting as early as now to 2026. All right, and that is a review of the projects and the educational need.
Great, thank you. We will now hear from Stifel, our underwriter and CFO Bolzer, about how the proposed projects will be financed, as well as information about the effect on the typical property taxpayer.
Good evening. First off, I did not think I was going to learn a lot about bowling or electricity tonight. That was a pleasant surprise.
Welcome back. Yes, sir.
But good to see everyone again. This presentation is going to look very similar to what it did just a couple weeks ago. So here today to talk about the financing of this project and the potential impact on a typical taxpayer. The first slide that you'll see is the school corporation's outstanding bond issues, the 2018 GOs, 2020 GOs, and 2021 GOs. And you'll notice that the school is completely out of debt after 2028. And that corresponds very similar to the school corporation's current debt service fund tax rate, and that's in gray right there. So in 2024, it's just at right around 15 cents, and as some of that debt retires, that tax rate begins to drop. When we look at adding on or layering on this new bond issue, the $19,050,000 in 2024, that's highlighted in red there. So there'd be a 5-cent increase, or just over a 5-cent debt service tax rate increase over the 2024 rate. And you'll see we're filling that in around when some of that debt falls off in 2027, 2028, and 29. And not only are we trying to limit the tax rate increase in those first few initial years, also leaving the school corporation capacity again beginning in 2027. We know there's a lot of ongoing needs with school corporations, with as many buildings and just ongoing projects and needs that schools have. So this would allow you to come back if you desire to in 2027 tackle any additional projects. So of that $19,050,000, and breaking down the cost here, $18,374,000 is estimated to go to the hard and soft project costs. The cost of issuance is in green. That's just going to pay all your professional fees for the bond issue. And then in red is capitalized interest. And essentially what that does is we're taking some of the bond proceeds to limit the tax rate increase in that first year, because investors are still going to be owed interest in that first payment. So we're just taking some of those proceeds to offset and limit the impact for taxpayers. So of that almost 6-cent increase, what does that mean to the average taxpayer? You guys have a few different taxing districts. The largest, of course, is within Richmond City, Wayne Township. So just under 8,000 parcels are in there. And any home that is above a market value of $80,276 is not going to feel an impact on an annual basis. You'll see the impact for the $50,000 and $75,000 homes that are not at their cap. What does that mean on an annual basis? So For a $75,000 home, it's just under $10 annually, so less than $1 a month. And as you move to the right, those are the other townships or the other taxing units that within that make up Richmond. What that would mean if they're not at their cap. So Boston Township, Boston Town, Wayne Township Sanitary, and Spring Grove Town. The vast majority, again, is almost 7,700 within the city of Richmond, but there are some other homes that are obviously outside of the city limits. So with that being said, almost 70% of the homesteads are currently at the cap. So even with that 5-cent increase, they're not going to pay anymore because they're at that 1% cap. The ones that are not at that cap, those are the ones you're going to see in Boston Township and in the town of Boston mainly. And you can see what the annual impact there. So if you look at the $200,000 home within Boston Township, that's just under $60 annually, or approximately $5 a month, or just slightly less than that. And this is assuming a 6-cent increase, and I think we're closer to about 5.5. So that's a touch conservative there as well. These are the legal parameters that will be in the resolution tonight. $19,050,000 is a maximum borrowing amount that we're authorizing. Of that $19,050,000, $676,000 goes to pay cost of issuance and capitalized interest, just like we showed on the pie chart a couple slides ago. The remaining goes towards hard and soft project costs. We're assuming 5% interest rates on everything. If it is less than that, that's just going to lower that capitalized interest amount and allow for more dollars to flow to the hard and soft project fund. For the purposes of the parameters, we're assuming a maximum interest rate of 6%. Your total interest cost is listed there of $9.5 million. That's based on a 15-year term that we showed on that second or third slide there. The maximum annual payment is the maximum that the school corporation can make in any given year. If you simply divide that by the school corporation's tax rate and do not account for any assessed value growth or debt falling off, that gives you a tax rate impact of $1,879. But when you do factor all of that in, that's what was shown on that previous chart with the gray and the red there, and that's a net tax rate impact over the 2024 rate of just over 5 cents. We have a couple ratios down at the bottom, and that's just the school corporation's max annual payment divided by the net assessed value. That's 0.2254. And then the direct and overlapping debt as a percentage of the school corporation's net assessed value. That's just factoring in the county, city, township, library, all the other entities that make up your taxing unit, and that's 1.8106. I know that's a lot of information and numbers. That's all going to be in your resolution tonight as well. And same numbers as what we took a couple of weeks ago. But are there any questions from the administration or the board?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So the 5.5 cents per $100 of assessed is with a homestead. So if it's an investment property, then it would be $25 a year approximately. An increase for a $50,000 property.
They would be at the 2% cap.
Okay.
So
okay.
they're not at the 1% cap.
Right.
Your homesteads are at 1%.
Yes.
Farmland, rental properties, long-term care is at 2%, and then commercials at 3%.
And so just for an example, the Richmond City Wayne Township District has 84% of our total parcel count, or our levy or our base is in that taxing district. Of that 84% of our entire base, 89.9% is already at the cap. That's 1, 2, and 3. So the ones that would be furthest from the cap would be your 1%ers. So that's why he mentioned the 1%, what the 1% would do, because those others, that the 2 and the 3, which would be your rental properties, your commercial, your agricultural, your apartments, and then the industrial and other commercial are at 3 as well, 3%. So that kind of is why we broke it down that way.
Okay. Thank you.
Will there be a call provision? Will there be a call provision of some sort built into the bond structure?
Yeah, so typically on a 15-year transaction, we would put a call provision on there in 7 or 8 years, meaning that within 7 or 8 years you could refinance it if interest rates are favorable at that time to lower your payments. So it's a little bit different than a mortgage. You know, if you get a mortgage and 5%, and then 3 months later your interest rate is now 3, you could go get an interest rate for 4%. You could walk back into that bank and do that. Municipal bonds are priced a little bit differently. You set the call provision at the time of the bond sale. Typically, we see those within 7 to 10 years, depending on how long the term of the bond is. So I would think that we would be somewhere 7 or 8 year call, and that would also give you some additional flexibility if interest rates are favorable at the time of that call.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brooker.
We will now open the public hearing. Remember, if you'd like to speak, please sign in on the sheet, which will indicate Bridget Hazel Baker at the back of the room.
We do not have anyone for public hearing.
Okay. Very good. So at this time, I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
A motion by Member Stoltz. And second with Board Member Zaleski. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 4-0. So now we'll move on to 3.02. I don't know if we need to talk any more about that since we did.
The only thing is it's probably good to go ahead and present each resolution so it's just read into the minutes, because we'll extract the minutes to show and reflect that we did read it in.
Okay.
So if it's okay, I'll go ahead and read that in.
Yes.
I apologize. I do.
Okay.
In summary, the first project resolution is going to be known as Exhibit A. The resolution being presented establishes the estimated costs of the project, the tax impact, and the timing of the impact. The project resolution is required when the school is planning to spend more than $1 million per building, as Mr. Cross referenced earlier. It contains the estimated hard and soft construction costs and the cost of issuance, and establishes the total cost of the project. It also contains the estimated tax impact. So with that said, whereas the Board of School Trustees of Richmond Community Schools at the meeting on March 13th, 2024, held a public hearing in accordance with Indiana Code 20-26-7-37 for the purpose of answering questions and listening to taxpayers' comments and any evidence they may present about the proposed 24-25 projects consisting of renovation and the improvements to school facilities, including safety, security, and energy efficiency projects, site work, and athletic improvements, and the potential purchase of real estate, equipment, and technology. Whereas the board has carefully studied all of the known options and feels that the proposed projects are in the best interest and present at the present and future students to be served by the facilities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the purpose of the projects is to provide an improved educational environment for students. Be it further resolved that the estimated hard and soft costs of the projects are $18,374,000 with an estimated cost of issuance, including the capitalized interest, less interest earnings, and interim lease rental of $676,000, resulting in a total estimated cost of the projects of $19,050,000. Be it further resolved that the estimated $19,050,000 will be funded by one or more of the following: operations fund, common school fund loan, state or federal grant monies, general obligation bond issue, and or building corporation bond issue, with an anticipated impact on the debt service fund tax rate of 18 cents, 0.1879 per 100 assessed valuation, based on an estimated 1.596 assessed value beginning in 2025. However, as existing obligations mature, the anticipated increase to the debt service fund rate is expected to be 6 cents or 0.0539 above the current rate. So it's important to note that 1879 is the totality, with the current where the increase would be that less than 6 cents. Be it further resolved that the debt service fund rate as of the date herein is 15 cents or 0.1508.
Thank you. At this time, I need a motion to pass and adopt the project resolution Exhibit A as presented.
So moved.
Motion by member Zaleski. Second.
Don't want it.
I'm voting no, so I'm not gonna second it.
Second by board member Stoltz. Questions or comments?
I just make the comment one time, this is beyond my comfort level, and so I'm not gonna support the project.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay. So now we'll do a roll call. Stoltz. Aye. Zaleski.
Aye.
Weber.
Nay.
Brunton. Aye. Okay. Motion passes 3-1. 3.03 preliminary determination resolution. It's back to you.
Thank you.
For exhibit B.
This preliminary determination resolution, or also referred to as Exhibit B, is the preliminary determination resolution that is required when a school is planning to finance more than a certain amount for a given facility. It contains the total cost of the project's maximum annual payment and lease term and other financial terms such as the estimated principal amount and tax impact. Whereas Richmond Community Schools published a notice of preliminary determination hearings on February 16th of 2024 on the Palladium item and mailed such notice to the Wayne County Clerk and any organizations requesting such notice as provided in Indiana Code 6-1.1-20-3.1 with respect to the 24-25 projects consisting of the renovation of and improvements to school facilities, including safety, security, and energy efficiency projects, site work and athletic improvements, and the potential purchase of real estate, equipment, and technology, collectively referred to as projects. Whereas the first preliminary determination hearing was held on February 28, 2024, and a second preliminary determination hearing was held on March 13, 2024, in accordance with the notice and the law of the state of Indiana. Whereas the school corporation has made the following information available to the public at the public meetings. A, the result of the school corporation's current and projected annual debt service payments divided by the net assessed value of the taxable property within the school corporation. B, the result of the sum of the school corporation's outstanding long-term debt plus the outstanding long-term debt of other taxing units that include any of the territory of the school corporation divided by the net assessed value of the taxable property within the school corporation. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of School Trustees of the school corporation preliminary determines to issue bonds and enter into a lease for the projects. Be it further resolved that such lease agreement will be for a maximum term of 22 years with a maximum annual lease rental payment of $3 million. The maximum annual lease rental payment has been estimated based upon the estimated principal amount of bonds of $19,050,000, estimated interest ranging from 2.0% to 6.0%, and estimated total interest costs of $9.5 million. The school corporation may issue general obligation bonds to fund the projects, and if such bonds are issued, they will fit into the parameters listed above. If the school corporation issues general obligation bonds, the principal amount of the bonds associated with the lease, as described above, would be reduced by the principal amount of the general obligation bonds issued, such that the total principal amount of the bond issued to finance the projects would not exceed the aggregate estimated principal amount of $19,050,000. The school corporation's current debt service levy is $2,407,622, and the current debt rate is 0.1508. After the school corporation enters into the proposed lease agreement and the bonds are issued, the debt service levy will increase by a maximum of $3 million, and the debt service rate will increase by a maximum of 0.1879. However, as existing obligations mature, the anticipated increase to the debt service fund tax rate is expected to be 0.0539 above the current rate. The maximum annual debt service for the projects for any year in which the bonds are outstanding is $3 million. The estimated amount of the school corporation's debt service levy and the rate will result during the following 10 years if the school corporation enters into the lease agreement and issues the bonds after considering any changes that will occur to the debt service levy and rate during the period on account of any outstanding bonds or lease obligations that will mature or terminate through the period, and we have that listed from 2024 through 2034. The purpose of the lease agreement is to provide for the completion of the projects, as Mrs. Scalf referenced. Be it further resolved that the capital improvement projects addressed in the most recent threat assessment and school safety plan have been completed. Be it further resolved that the Secretary of the Board is hereby authorized and directed to publish the notice of adoption of the preliminary determination in accordance with the law. Be it further resolved that if a valid petition pursuant to Indiana Code 6-1.1-20-3.1 is received by the school corporation, the Secretary of the Board is hereby authorized to submit the notice pursuant to Indiana Code 6-1.1-20-3.1 and any other required information to the Wayne County Clerk.
Thank you. I need a motion to pass and adopt the preliminary determination resolution Exhibit B as presented.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Board Member Stoltz and a second by Board Member Zaleski. Any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Take a roll call. Stoltz.
Aye.
Zaleski.
Aye.
Weber.
Nay.
Brunton. Aye. Motion passes 3-1. 3.04, the declaration of official intent to reimburse expenditures, Exhibit C.
So the good news is I don't have to read this one all the way. But what I will say is Richmond Community Schools intends to finance renovations of and improvements to the school facilities, including site improvements and purchase of technology and equipment. The school corporation reasonably expects to reimburse certain costs of the project with proceeds of obligations to be incurred on behalf of the school corporation. If the school corporation pays any preliminary costs related to the projects prior to receiving bond proceeds, it may reserve its ability to be reimbursed from bond proceeds after the closing. The adoption of this declaration will reserve the school corporation's ability to reimburse itself pursuant to federal tax law. If you recall, you did pass this preliminarily in November. That gave us that flexibility. We just put a lot lower amount in there. This will match the other resolutions that you just passed.
Thank you. I need a motion to pass and adopt the declaration of official intent to reimburse expenditures, Exhibit C as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Stoltz with the motion, Zaleski with the second. Questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Stoltz. Aye.
It doesn't make sense to me.
Zaleski.
Aye.
Weber.
Nay.
Brunton, aye. Motion passed 3-1.
Actually, President Brunton, I'm going to have to intercede here.
Okay.
I don't believe these are contractual documents, contractual in the sense that they're commitments to the bondholders and to the public that will be funding the bonds. I will verify with our counsel at Ice Miller tomorrow, but I'm not sure final action has resulted because I think these contracts didn't require a majority of the board, not a majority of the board president voting. I will verify that. If that is the case, the 3-3 vote or the 3-1 vote does not constitute a defeat, if you will. It's not final action, and there will be obviously needs for re-advertisement and rescheduling of further proceedings. If that is the case, if it isn't the case, we're fine. We have the notice already at the paper ready to publish on the 19th. We have until the 15th, which is Friday, to pull it if we need to. And I will let you know. It's not going to really be my call, although I think I'm correct, but I would love to be wrong, but that is the case. The good news being that we have enough time in the timeline. That's really not going to be terribly critical. So,
okay.
With that being said,
We have other board members coming.
I beg your pardon?
Later tonight.
Both board members are coming, the two who are absent.
We still
I think
it's been advertised for tonight, so the legal advertisement is sufficient. We didn't put a time in. If the board chooses to add this as an agenda item toward the end of the meeting and reconsider it at that time, I think that's appropriate. I will see if that's curative of the initial vote or not. That's not going to be my call, but I don't see it as I don't see that as a bad idea. I wasn't aware of I know Aaron said he would be back. I did not know that.
Mrs.
Mrs.
Pickering's on
Pickering.
her way. Yeah. So we will need to re-vote on both resolutions and the exhibits, each of the exhibits, is that correct? Potentially. I just want to make sure we're talking about all three of them. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Okay.
So again, just to be clear, what Attorney Cost represents, table these until later on.
Yes.
Then revisit these items. I'm sorry.
So maybe Mrs. Bolster wouldn't have to read them all again. I'm just gonna.
Sure, yeah. Let's hope that's not the case.
Okay, so at this time, we're gonna reconvene the regular business meeting and perhaps come back to it's a public meeting.
Contracts, all contracts have to be approved.
Okay, agenda item 4, highlights and happenings, Dr. Wright.
President Broughton, trustees. Of course, our highlights and happenings that we will be presenting. I also have a guest with us to highlight the many happenings taking place not only within my department and office, but also throughout the corporation. First and foremost, I met with the newly elected mayor, Ron Oler, not long ago. He and I, Member Zaleski, had a great conversation. We are always appreciative of the mayoral office, not only Mayor Oler, but also his predecessor, has really worked hard to continue to strengthen the partnership with Richmond Community Schools. I have a follow-up meeting with the mayor, and I know that he shares in all of our sentiments in re-establishing and reinvigorating our community school system and ultimately our city as a whole. So that is one of the major highlights over the past a few weeks here. And then secondly, as I said, with regard to my happening, I'm going to ask that Dr. Michael Lansford from Equitable Education Solutions Innovation join us this evening. He is a consulting firm founder. We have partnered with ES in the past with our data warehouse, as well as through their marketing arm that Dr. Lansford has associated with the firm. You all have charged me as lieutenant to create a professional learning organization. And in doing so, we know that that organization begins with goals and with a plan. And the strategic planning process that occurred prior to my arrival in this role is now up, as we know, for review. And Dr. Lansman has worked in several corporations throughout the state and throughout the area and has had quite a bit of success in moving the needle when it comes to student achievement. And he's going to share with us how he and his firm has got it done.
Sure. First of all, thank you. Second of all, I will need the name of the little boy because my wife is a dentist, so we'd like to know what toothpaste to support our people with.
Yes.
So my name's Mike Launchman. I own ES Innovations. So we've worked with you, like he said, in the past. We've worked with 70 districts across the state. We've done learning prioritization plans. That's what we call our strategic plans in probably 25 districts or more. Just to give you kind of a summary of how ours is a little bit different than the traditional strategic. Well, I'll do that because my team presented a slide deck and I don't normally stay true to that. I assume I'm a lot like Dr. Wright where I'm all over. So we'll see. All right. So basically what we would like to do is looking at a strategic plan for you, but really looking at it from an academic lens only. A lot of times the strategic plan will incorporate like facility studies, demographics, different things like this. What we have learned is by prioritizing first on the learning aspects of it and identifying like areas that you want to become great at, it helps create intentional focus on academic learning and then can help facilitate other things like facility studies, like things like that. So for instance, we had one district that really was committed to becoming a K-12 STEM certified building or district. Once they figured that out and their community spoke on that, they then decided, you know what, it's also really good for us to maybe build some collaborative learning spaces that would align with STEM education. That's just one example of something that we've seen happen. So he told me I had to go fast, so you're going to hear me speak fast because I want to make sure that I have time for you to answer questions, more importantly than for you to look at a slide deck. one thing he will tell you is I'm very transparent. I'll say whatever I want. So that sometimes can be good or bad. All right. So what we're going to try to do is create an actual roadmap, really focusing on the strengths. What we don't do is take away from the strengths you already have. We will embrace the strengths that you already have. We can take your previous strategic plan and just amplify it up. Okay? So we do use a holistic kind of 360 approach. So you'll notice that we do curriculum assessment audits. We do instructional walkthroughs where we go into classrooms. We do focus groups and surveys. Usually with our focus groups and surveys, we're doing things, we want to build you a plan that's the bottom up. Not a Dr. Wright plan, not the cabinet plan, but a plan that actually comes from your community. So we engage teachers, parents, students. By the way, I start students before you ask at grades 3 through 12. I don't do kindergartners because they want to hug me and I can't do that. Okay. But we do community members. We do instructional support staff. We do district office. I do board presentation. After we're all done, when we figure out what we want, I come back and do a board training with you. Different things like that. We look at your data. Another thing that's really good about our LPP process is we do an initiative inventory. Everybody in the whole state is telling us we have teachers will say this all the time. We have too many things being thrown at us. One of the things we do in our planning is really try to funnel down and identify where you're going to be great. We typically will see a plan with 3 key priority areas. We won't know what those are until we spend time in your community and listen to your people and allow them to have that voice. Typically, you'll see 2 student outcomes and 1 student opportunity. Examples of student outcomes would definitely be like literacy, math, instructional priority models, different things like that. We've partnered with several districts that have embraced other companies as well. We've partnered with some that, like Beech Grove, who uses an IET. We've worked with them and had no problems. We're pretty easy to get along with. Student opportunities, things like that, could be like employability skill focuses. It could be STEM, different things like that, career pathways, things like that. Our goal is to get everybody focused and moving in strategic alignment in the same direction. So you see all of those different stakeholder groups. We believe kind of the plan is, there's many things I've kind of already covered for you. I've talked to the initiative fatigue, the ground up approach. One of the things that we like is that our plan is centered on building sustainable systems. We don't just come in and try to buy something for you and say, hey, this will cure you. Instead, we work hard at building strong systems that can be used after we would leave it. Okay? Accountability, I'll touch on in a couple minutes because I have a slide for that. What we do, we want to make sure that it is very actionable. The one thing I would tell you is I was a former assistant superintendent. I've seen strategic plans in 70 plus districts. I've seen them sit on a shelf. We want to make sure that it will be more actionable. We have actually built software around making it more actionable. We have basically 2 different areas. We have the development of your LPP and then the implementation of the LPP. What I'm here tonight to talk to you about is really just the development of the LPP. I would not know if we would be a good partner for you on the implementation until I know what your 3 KPAs are. My rule is if I'm not the best at something, I won't do it. So this is our software. It's our team app. We use Team to actually hold people accountable to their strategic plan. It will be your opportunity. Dr. Wright would be able to share with you. Usually most of our superintendents do it on a quarterly basis. And what they can actually do is show you where is each building in their KPA progress, how many action steps have they completed in the last 30, 60, 90 days, how far is this? One thing that I will warn you is, like if in the first 6 months, your percentage is really low, that's because the plan's meant to be a 3-year plan, not a 6-month plan. Okay? So team stands for tracking engagement and alignment metrics. Our goal is to engage your building principals, engage your cabinet to really move change in this district, as well as having them engage their teachers. All right, so this is an example, just one quick little example for you. Like key priority area 1, 2, and 3. This is the software. Now, if you click on any of the building, this is just showing the district numbers. If you click on any of the circles at the building level, you can actually go into their plan. You'll be able to see when were action step due dates. Why are they behind? Why are they behind? What was the reason for changing things? All different kind of things are built into the software for you. I believe that the most important thing of software is user experience and how you interface with it. So I design all my softwares so that my fifth grader can do it. That's basically kind of I believe in Steve Jobs' approach. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Here's just some of our districts. You can see across the state that we're doing. I don't have some of the newer ones on right now. I know we're doing New Albany Floyd right now. We're doing Marion. It's up there already. I don't even know. My team's all over the place right now.
You're also here in the county of Western Wayne?
Yeah, we were Western Wayne. We wrote their transformation zone grant, which got them about $2 or $3 million. Our company's brought in, I think, just over $56 million in competitive grant funding for schools, districts. So you guys are actually eligible for a CSI grant, which we'll talk about at another day. Okay. Like I said, I went super fast because I'd rather hear your questions than go through a slide deck. What can I answer for you?
What is the timeline for phase 1 through 3 approximately?
Yeah. Typically, we like to start the process a little earlier in the year. Ideally, the best time to start it is usually October. But I also know that many districts have grant funding that they have to get spent. So we've had a lot of interest. I've told Dr. Wright we would make it happen this spring in the hope that I would be presenting to you probably either in June or July so that you would be able to roll out the plan to teachers in August. That is a very expedited timeline, but Dr. Wright has demanded it, so I will meet it if need be. We usually take about 6 months.
Okay. Thank you.
So a lot will also depend on when my proposal's signed. Because if you don't sign it till June, then that will be a different story.
So, I mean, I'm not quite as hung up on the timeline, but as far as our system produces basically 50% of state average. So it's failed. Despite tremendous effort by teachers and administrators, individual effort, great. There's tons of people doing great work. But our system is failed. So to change our system, does a product, a generic system strategic plan, is that going to do it? I mean, what's it going to take to reinvent our CS? I mean, is this in your wheelhouse, I guess?
I will tell you that if you look at the results that I've got across districts, so for instance, I know that you are a similar district to a Kokomo. Not too far. I know you guys play them in basketball. I know that. We've been up at Kokomo, and if you look at Bonner Middle School was one of the schools that we are partnered with in a transformation zone, like what we have in Western Wayne. During the pandemic, which was a very tough time for most schools, out of over 4,000 school district or schools in the country that use iReady formative assessments, they placed in the top 40 in actual growth, which is top 1% across the nation, and were awarded the beating the odds.
How about proficiency?
Proficiency, we've had gains in proficiency as well. Will I take you from where you are to 95%? No, probably not in a year. That's not going to happen. I will tell you that our expectations are for you to see growth and proficiency both catapult forward by channeling an intentional focus. Now, I can't tell you what your KPAs are because I've not worked with your community yet. Okay, but I can tell
What's
you.
KPA mean again?
Oh, key priority areas.
Okay.
I can't tell you what your 3 big buckets will be. Typically, one of the big buckets, for instance, if test scores is something that you're focused on as a community, and I don't know if that's the case or not yet until I talk to them, but if that is an area that you are focused on, one of the KPAs typically might revolve around literacy, science and reading initiatives, things like that. Because when you raise literacy outcomes, you also raise math outcomes, because math is also probably about 70% literacy test now. We have a proven track record. I know Dr. Wright has called multiple districts to check to see whether I have a proven track record. I have 45 full-time staff members. We do a lot of things. I have a math team, literacy team. I have a strategic planning team. I have a STEM team, so on and so on.
Thank you.
Will I fix the state issues? No, because the department's a mess right now. I can't go on record and say that too bad, but
I mean,
yeah.
it's a comparison. So whatever you use, I mean, but we fall too far below that.
Well, I would tell you that my districts that are falling far below the state average and are making progress is through a comprehensive system that I know you use the word generic. I would say ours is customized. There's a difference between the two. And I would tell you that when we do things where you intentionally focus so that kids develop creative thinking, critical thinking skills that will help support them on testing outcomes. So that's what I would say.
Thank you.
No problem.
And the intentionality, the collaboration, sustainability, those are things and tenets that I know we've been pressing forward since I acquired this role, and I know our cabinet worked hard to implement just that. I'm curious to know, piggybacking on Mr. Weber's question, I believe you had in one of the previous slides, you highlighted the accountability and monitoring.
The team app?
Can you expand just a little bit as to how engaged and involved you and your team are throughout the course of this entire process? This is not something in which we will see you tonight and then maybe see you in several months. Of what I understand and of those conversations I've had with fellow superintendents who have raved about the program, you all have been in lockstep with that.
Yeah, so my team actually works a lot with building principals as well. So what would commonly happen in this process is my team would come in, collect all the information, build all the things. Then what would happen is I would probably come back and do a board training in which I would share results, but also do a board training and executive session is typically how that would roll. After that, once that's done, my team would work on creating your final report once I know that I have board support, because if I don't have board support, the plan's not going to go very far. Now, once that's done, final report's done, then we start working. Typically, I would work with cabinet first. My lead would probably work with your cabinet. We would get that set up into the team app. Then we would actually work with building principals so that they can customize, let's say, action steps within the software that you're doing. An example, just to make it easy on you guys, one of the examples might be, let's say literacy, which I talked about for a minute, was a KPA area, like science of reading, alignment, things like that. So what literacy action steps would look like in your K2 area versus what it will look like in high school, those action steps will be radically different. What won't be different is the district-wide commitment of every building to that key priority area of literacy. Okay? So when we talk about accountability, for instance, my goal is that through this app, through the plan, and through the work, it would allow you to hold Dr. Wright and his team accountable. It would have Dr. Wright and his team holding the building principals accountable. And then it would allow the principals to hold teachers accountable. But to hold them accountable in a way that would allow you to focus your energy. You know, get a lot more energy when you can do the same amount of energy, but it can move the needle a lot better when you funnel down your energy, your source of energy.
And with regard to that accountability, once we are, as we have known and as we've taken advantage of your product through the data warehousing, once we're data informed, we then at that point can be that much more intentional with our accountability measures so as to then provide the necessary and accurate supports and professional development that's associated with it.
I cannot speak to Richmond, but I can speak to most districts that I work with that are falling well below the state average. Typically, the problem is, everybody has good people that want to make a difference. That's not the problem. The problem is the intentionality and the focus. When that is done and done in a right way, it tends to move that needle for you. And that is what we focus on, is that intentionality and accountability. What we would say is defined autonomy. So building principals have the right to have autonomy as long as they're still aligned with the overall key priority areas of the district.
That is what is consistent with those fellow superintendents that I've spoken with that have utilized you all services, is the fact that supports that the consistent ongoing supports throughout the course of this entire process is what they continue to be taking place.
Yeah, and sometimes some of our districts are able to leverage some of our other services to help move them in their implementation phase. I just can't tell you that today until I know what your KPIs are.
And then finally, from before one of the things that I know once we established the LPP, once we established the KPAs, I know with your marketing, that's then when you accentuate and highlight even more so what it is that the board, our cabinet, principals, teachers, community come up with.
Yeah, I've got it pretty good. I've got 3 videographers, 3 graphic designers. I've got a project manager on that team. We've done a little bit of video. I think my team was in your district last week.
Yes, sir.
Working with some kids and teachers, I believe, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And faculty and staff.
Yeah. So, and really enjoyed their day. Had a really great day.
And it's your product that shows up every time someone logs into our website.
We're about to give you some more. We're about to help you with the social media side of things a little bit.
Other questions?
With the app, there's going to be an extra reporting piece for principals, teachers. So are we adding more reporting? I just don't want to take them away from.
Yeah, no. This is more of a leadership tool, not at the teacher level. This is more of a leadership tool, and when I say it's as easy as my 5th grader clicking buttons, that's how easy it is. If you go in and complete an action step, you click one button, it shows completed, it updates your percentages, things like that. It is super easy. What it hopefully will do is help drive some of the conversations that your cabinet has with your individual buildings about, I noticed that you're falling behind in KPA number 2. What could I do to help you? So if anything, this tool has become more of a tool to allow your cabinet to be better at helping the principals move the needle than it has been more of a, hey, I got you kind of mentality. It will add almost no work onto the building principals at all. And what it will actually do is they'll actually be able to take the reports and then funnel them into their school improvement plan. So it actually will probably alleviate more work than it will actually add.
That's consistent with what the superintendents I spoke with that you mentioned, is that with the intentionality, with the funnel focus, it allows for other things to fall off the plate, metaphorically speaking, because now you are focused on 3 primary key areas.
Our very successful districts, 1, superintendents show the board once every 3 to 6 months the progress in using the app. Number 2, their cabinet, like you have, works directly with the building principals to help them overcome obstacles. And number 3, now I lost my 3rd one. I'll come back to it. But anyway, you'll see a much more funneled approach to school improvement. Oh, what they actually do, number 3 is they actually will take their 3 KPAs and the action steps that they have, and that will drive a lot of their school improvement planning. So it actually makes the school improvement planning process easier. Now they still have to do their Title I assurances, things like that. The DOE still has requirements. Right. You'll still have to do CSI, TSI, and use the state template and things like that. But I think it can help funnel a stronger conversation. So to answer your question, it doesn't really add work. It actually helps take work off the plate. Okay. Redistribute energy.
Other questions for Dr. Lundgren?
This isn't under action items, so where are we at?
This is Dr. Lundgren's visit today is to present their offerings, what EES innovations can do for RCS. from that point. I know we'll continue the conversations. We also have presentations that are up and coming from another partnering vendor. But the goal is to find out the development partners with regard to moving forward with this process. Well, Dr. Lons, again, sincerely appreciate you being here this evening.
Problem.
Thank you so much for your patience and thank you for the presentation, sir.
Oh, there you go. I am going to take off. Have a good night. I'm going to head back to the other side of the stage.
We appreciate your safe
Thank you,
travels.
guys.
Thank you, sir. Alrighty, with that, I'm now going to ask that Mr. Brett Baker, our Chief of Elementary Education, share tonight's highlight and happening from his office. Mr. Baker.
Yep. So, good evening. My highlight I'm going to share is a requirement for the IDOE literacy cadre is our cadre schools, Vale, Star, and Fairview. A literacy coach next year to work on literacy in grades K through 3. We are looking to reallocate our building interventionists to fill these 3 positions. A survey was sent to the interventionists to gauge their interest in becoming literacy coaches. Half of the interventionists said they would be interested in being literacy coaches. Their willingness to be flexible through this process has been great. My happenings. Our elementary buildings have last week finished the first round of iRead testing, or the first week of it. They are 3 days into it this week. The window closes Friday. The test is given to all second grade students and to third grade students who did not pass the assessment as second graders. Also, RCS is hosting 2 reading vendors. One was today, the 13th, and one is the 20th of March, to present to any interested staff member. Charles Elementary will host both of these. Amplify was today from 3:45 to about 5:15. And Wit and Wisdom will present at Charles on the 20th from 3:30 to 5 o'clock.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Question? No,
What's a reading vendor? I mean, what, I mean, I suppose.
So there's 5 vendors we have to choose from. The state has given us 5 vendors to choose from for our new reading series. And so we're having them come present to show off their product.
This is replacing what then?
F&B
that we just adopted 2 years ago.
It was so this would be our last year of the adoption, and it was 5 years ago, believe it or not.
When the state's forcing everybody to switch to the science of reading.
And I mean, that was one of the highlights of being on board is that, well, Mrs. Jordan's got a collaborative effort to get that in this district.
So if I might just say, no one expected the DOE to pass this science of reading at that time. They are specifying curriculum in a way that if FMP doesn't qualify, we couldn't use it anyway. So I know that it's a little bit heart-wrenching because it was such a huge process and it was such a collaborative process in order to bring that into the district. But a lot of what Mr. Baker is talking about is DOE required, and it did not exist at the time in which we approved that adoption. So I just wanted to clarify that because it was such a conversation at that time.
Vale, Star, and Fairview are in the cadre, not because we put them in there.
Yeah. Well, I think the key with that was the buy-in from the teachers and the staff. I mean, that was I don't care what program they pick, but when they come up here and give passionate talks about how they've spent hundreds of hours, I mean, as a board member, what could you possibly ask for? What more? And that kind of leads me to the second point. I don't really understand at all how we go from 9 interventionalists to 6, and now we label 3 of them literacy coaches, when the state's basically saying we want a literacy coach in each of those buildings. This is how it reads to me. It seems like the state's saying add 3 literacy coaches. What happens to what those up? I mean, the math just doesn't seem to work.
I want to find a way to provide more support than what we have right now. And part of that is going to be through the cadre, and part of that is we're looking into grants to help provide more support to the primary grades. I have no desire to lessen the support that we have in our primary grades. We need more.
One of the other things that
and I know that doesn't sound like that, but
Well, I mean, as I sit meeting after meeting, voting no against expenses, and then we come to this meeting, and the expense is 3 coaches. That I would be more than happy to support that.
And then to piggyback on what Mr.
But that's not the direction we're going.
One of the things that we have found is that with our interventionists, we find a lot of veteran, experienced educators that are quality tier 1 instructors. I think I've shared the different tiers throughout the course of time. If our tier 1 educators, our classroom teachers, are moving the needle, moving that student achievement needle, then it reduces the required support at tiers 2 and 3, which is where our interventionists lie, is typically in those tiers 2 and 3. And so as we continue to be data informed and look to potentially reallocate the resources we have, we're definitely, to Mr. Weber's point, trying to utilize the resources we currently have to make the most of the current situation in front of us. The challenge with, as Mr. Scalf referenced the state mandates, new initiatives, we then at that point have to review, reflect, and make potential revisions to meet such mandates as well as meet our current needs. I can't speak to. Can I ask Mr. Weber, because we weren't here? Can you share, or can you all were around then? What was the rationale or the premise to going to the Fontes of Manel 5 years ago? I think it was in the FMP.
It was a. Can she speak to it?
Yeah, this is Jordan with an excellent
Mrs.
person
Jordan,
to refer
do
to
you mind coming
that
up to
because she was
you
on
mind
that.
come up to the podium? We always appreciate your presence. And I know that you always stand at the ready and always engage and interact. And so, yes, Mrs. Jordan, our proud principal of Star Elementary School, who formerly served in Coke. I believe you also may have been an interventionist at one point. I could be wrong, but I know you were an instructional coach. I know you know curriculum instruction like the back of your head. And so, can you just share the rationale then with regard to Fontes and Manel, as well as maybe even OG, Morton Gilliam, and some of the other things that we've used in the corporation?
When we looked at all the different curriculum opportunities at that point and looked at our numbers here in Richmond Community Schools, we knew that if we had a weakness in reading comprehension and we needed to build that, and we know that kids need to be reading on a daily basis to become better readers. In fact, in Pinnell, many of us have been trained as not just Pinnell coaches and literacy coaches with the foundations. And I apologize, I don't know much about voice.
You're fine. It's okay.
But we knew that that particular curriculum came with everything that was needed for a teacher, from the beginning levels all the way up to seasoned literacy coaches and things, to be able to take that and provide quality mini lessons and quality guided reading instruction, to be able to move our students forward. And now with the changes with the IDOE, the one weaker area that we knew was that the F&P classroom, even though it was a wonderful program for guided reading and those instructional mini lessons, the phonics component was the weaker component. And so we looked at adding OG, and I know my building has Haggerty, and there's other buildings that have Haggerty, do something like that. And so we've been able to finish that for them. But now with the new index from the DOE, they are moving away from guided reading into more of a focus on the foundations of phonics first. And so they have taken and looked at the program that we have, which we do love, but knowing that we have to focus on those phonics, and unfortunately that was the one weak component. So it didn't make the cut for the ideal list.
And phonetic awareness is what many of us recall from our own educational experience. Appreciate that history. Yes, thank you for the other questions for Mrs. Jordan.
Is there an advantage right now with the IVOE's decision to move to this as opposed to moving away from Protestant now? Because I do remember, the enthusiasm, and not just Miss Jordan, but also the other teachers and the other principals and everyone else who saw this as a catalyst of progressing forward with moving students when it comes to their reading abilities. And I'm just wondering on today's date, is there an advantage of moving as opposed to
Staying the course.
yes?
And I think that to your question, Member Stevens, is a great question. I think in education, as we have come to understand, as research has shown, typically it takes roughly 4 or 5 years to really glean feedback, constructive feedback, and of what Mr. Jordan referenced with regard to the challenges on the phonemic side, phonics side of phonism. Now, I think the data now is informing our cities, informing the state, at least of what we've been sharing, informing the state that it may be time to pivot and look a different direction now. Of course, can't control the state, but I think, and Mr. Jordan, you may
There are some advantages. There's actually not because we, with the new adoption for that, thing is all those amazing resources that came with F&P, the read aloud libraries, guided reading materials, all of those things we will still have, and they will still be able to be utilized in classrooms. And then with our new adoption, we will have that partnership with the state with. Thank you. With the focus on that phonics and getting supports from them and getting that partnership. So it will strengthen the knowledge that we already have with F&B Classroom and using that small group and then all of the foundations that we know about comprehension and adding that to this phonemic awareness focus, and it'll strengthen us overall.
Okay, so maybe I asked the question incorrectly. I'm gonna rephrase the question. And please forgive me for time, but you've given me all the advantages. Give me a disadvantage. Give me the disadvantage of this because I mean, there can be 1,000 advantages, but for every disadvantage, that means a student may not succeed in the way that we want. Is there a disadvantage, please?
There's no perfect curriculum, so there's
Good answer.
And it is a definite shift. So we are going to have that retraining period where teachers who have been trained with F&P and that level of support and doing those things that way, this will definitely be a shift. So we're going to have to do the buy-in. But the good news is the research. I'm big on research. So the research behind it is showing wonderful advantages, especially for our disadvantaged students, is that having that impact of that daily phonemic awareness has really helped them move towards being readers and stronger readers, especially by second grade, which is where we need them to be able to switch over to the comprehension. So it will be a nice balance of they get what they need in K1-2 with that phonics so that they can take what we already know and what we've already been doing in 2, 3, 4 and up to really balance into strong readers and comprehenders. But it is something new. So there's that disadvantage of it's another new thing.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer.
Absolutely.
Sorry to consume time with those questions.
As far as teacher buy-in, I know board member Liver mentioned and you mentioned as well. How was the turnout today? Were the first vendors showing up? And I know that this is off hours, so teachers, at your building, it's 3:30. I'm picking up my kids, or I'm doing, working another job or whatever I'm doing. How are we making sure that we get the buy-in and get the opinion of all of these from the school, from every teacher?
Our coaches are presenting on the reading curriculums at each building.
Okay.
Today we had about 30.
Maybe a little more.
Yeah. On a beautiful day. We had 30 to 40 teachers and principals at Charles in the cafeteria today listening to Amplify give their presentation.
And every building is using our Tuesday PD times, like the last week, this week, to really, we've all been given the access codes to dig in and having those building conversations. And they're hot conversations because it might be good for kindergarten and another group likes, doesn't like that program, but it's the better one for fourth grade. So there's a lot of that, but they're given those opportunities to dig in and really experience it themselves. And I know all of us who went today are bringing back materials, like the actual materials to put with our staff to really look at. And we're also pulling it into our clusters so that we can have those deep conversations and answer those questions and be able to just kind of talk about things. And then all all the teachers are gonna be filling out surveys for Cynthia that she sent out based on the knowledge that we have, and really looking at, okay, what do we need to look at more, and having everybody's input.
And then just to piggyback on what Dr. Landry mentioned, then it becomes truly organic. And at that particular point, everyone gets a chance to engage, weigh in, be heard, have ownership. And then the professional learning communities at the schoolhouse then provide such feedback for us at the St. Walt's level. And then our organization as a whole just continues to grow.
And the teachers know that there's no perfect program either. There's no perfect curriculum. There's ups and downs for both. And they know that, okay, this might not be what we choose. And that's okay if it's best for the district and so.
Yep. And it's, we try to be as completely transparent through this whole process as possible. And I know sometimes when this adoptions like this occur, maybe a person in my position might have one that I prefer, one that I'm pushing. No, I'm letting them decide, what they want. I don't care, which one they choose. And so.
And I know a lot of teachers that are digging into social media sites and looking at like CKLA's Facebook group and Facebook groups. And so they're getting opinions and getting questions answered from outside our district as well.
Another question. So before I had kids, we attended a thing in Civic Hall with Dr. Reed Lyon, I think. And his whole spiel was kids learn to read different. Mm-hmm. What works for this kid may or may not work for that kid. I mean, are these 5 vendors, are the programs flexible enough to encompass multiple reading? I mean, yes, it's phonics, but there's still different ways. Mm-hmm. Or does it make sense to have 2 adoptions? I mean, do we have the flexibility we need, I guess? Do you think we can find it?
I think to have the alignment that we need to grow our students, we need 1 adoption.
Okay.
And so that the vocabulary, go ahead.
Okay.
So that we're building with the same vocabulary, same actions, same routines. So that really strengthens. And both programs really kind of build off of that. And so, but and in each component, in each curriculum that we're looking at, there are different components. There's shared reading, there's read alouds, there's the phonics groups, there's the small groups. So there's lots of things that are going to hit all those different papers.
And then Mr. Weber's question also speaks to, and he used the term differentiated instruction, and which speaks to providing the professional development and continue to support those educators that have already shown the competent ability to differentiate instruction. Almost going back to what it is our interventionists do. When they work with individual students that have individual needs, they are able to zero in, highlight, and get to the root of those individual steps. And so that differentiation with such a program, I think, is what the state is expecting. And in as we know, with the gradual release model, the I do, we do, you do, will eventually play out as well. Well, Mrs. Jordan, thank you so much for joining us. I know that you weren't necessarily did one in your cards, but you're always here and always willing to be thanked. Other questions from Mr. Jordan? What you said? Thank you, Mrs. Jordan.
What is our time frame for deciding so we have an implementation period and be able to, I don't want to do this the day before school starts, obviously. So what's our timeline? What's our schedule from your desk?
In training for the teachers.
I would say within a month, have something adopted and moving in that direction. It's just things change. The price that we're still struggling to get the pricing on the DOE's website. The pricing that they have listed right now for textbook fees is not correct. Not close to being correct.
And that's what I was going to comment. We're still also waiting on particular guidance from the State Department. One of the things that Dr. Landry just referenced in, as we know, is that when the state pivots to make such a huge pivot, oftentimes their cards have to be aligned in systems before we really are able to grab the bull by the horns and run with it. Because if not, we'll have a lot of failed stop.
Have to be for next year. What's the state? I mean, when's the deadline? When does the state say we have to adopt?
they don't have a deadline for us to adopt. We just have to adopt something for sure for those 3 buildings. The science and reading related. The one of the holdups, we have 2 holdups here. One, having 5 vendors, 5 vendor choices only, and going through all of that is one piece of it. Another piece of it is we have other subjects that need to adopt. Like science was supposed to adopt last year. The state said hold off on your adoption because we're changing the funding for textbooks from parents to school districts, and we still don't have any guidance on how science adoption is going to work or approved science curriculum. It's a very, very slow and difficult process right now. But I'm hoping in the next 30 days to have a reading curriculum figured out.
And the state was supposed to release the choices back in October.
Yes.
And that didn't happen until
March or
February. So that's really pushed our timeline.
And therein lies the difference between state control and local control. And if this was a local decision, I know that we have you all support to move in the direction that's best for our students here.
We locked in. I'm sorry. So let's say we make a rush adoption, and after 3 months, we think next year we want to, for the whole district, we want to go a different direction. I mean, is that possible?
So we're not going to make a rush decision. We've been visiting schools.
That's
I know, but we've been working on it for a while. We've been meeting with vendors prior to the list coming out because we couldn't wait any longer.
Yeah.
And we've been visiting. We visited Batesville last week. We're going to Dayton in the next week or so to visit a school system. But when the adoptions are agreed to, they're 6-year adoptions.
Without the buy-in, I mean, you've been doing work, and I don't doubt that at all. But without, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of hours that team with the F&P. I mean, it was one that we were on the board. I mean, I remember there's as many as the bowlings. There's full teachers and staff. And it was like I spent, 40 each of one. I spent 40 hours. I spent 100. I mean, just thousands of hours combined. And and that's why that program was supported and had buy-in. And I just don't know how you get that in 30 days. But
Mr. Weber was a great point that we all know. Without such buy-in, things can fall flat on their face, metaphorically speaking. But I think it also speaks to what Mrs. Jordan just expressed, and what it is that we know about classroom teachers is that teachers are survivalists, and they will oftentimes read the tea leaves or what's on the wall and start, which sounds as if many of the educators throughout our corporation, and definitely STAR, have already started doing their own research and communicating and reaching out to their networks to find out of the vending options, which has seemed to work in other areas of demographic similarity. As we know with this particular matter before us, this is not something that we've brought to the forefront. This was state-led, but we're game for the fight, and we know that those throughout our corporation are going to put their collective efforts in to realize what cards we have to play, and we're playing well. But Mr. Webb brings up a great point, because I believe prior to my arrival, there was some experience with some initiatives and some adoptions that early on it was realized that you all were not maybe getting the results that you had aspired to receive, and it created some other challenges, but that's what we're trying to avoid at all costs. So, Mr. Baker, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Wade.
Would the current vendor allow even a 1-year extension just so that we can continue with our current program for a year before we implement one of the 5 in 25, 26?
So I can kind of speak to that just from the side of things, that you can do continuing education on textbooks. The issue is the DOE wants implementation of the science of reading. What I heard Mr. Baker say is that some schools would move. Some will probably stay for a little while if this, if it isn't all, but we do have to implement the science of reading no matter what. There are DOE requirements on that. So yes, you can do continuing education. That is not an issue. We have done that in the past when we liked curriculums and we didn't want to switch. It had a change in fee structure at that point, but that is no longer an issue. But it is an option. It's just we have to meet that science of reading piece of this that is
I
very
didn't hear a
different.
deadline of next school year. You said there's not a deadline.
They don't have a deadline of when we have to adopt by. Like they're saying that I need to have my in a meeting in January they dropped on me that we had to have our cadre coaches hired by January 20th. All of a sudden, it was like 5 days later, and now they're saying they have to be hired by Friday, the 15th, and that's what they would like, but it's not realistic in every district. I mean, some districts aren't even going to be able to fill their literacy cadre coach, and so we've been communicating with them about it.
So with the terrain and the landscape moving underneath us, we're still just trying to chart it. Yeah,
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if there's a plan or a backup plan for the interventionist that we're moving. If we, is that something you're looking at? If it creates a big enough hole, are we going to replace those 3 that are moving? Can it be dual duty?
I'm working on finding grants to provide more support for our primary grades. And
if the money was there, do we have the ability to hire people? Are there qualified people that it would be easy to bring in and fill those positions?
Maybe.
I don't know if filling any position is necessarily easy.
No, I know.
Right now. But the other thing I would just add or contribute to that is, we also tried to take a look at the interventionist last year because we did have turnover in that position. And as Dr. Wright mentioned, with the, trying to focus on that tier 1 approach to the classroom. However, knowing that there are many outside the classroom supports, such as those that are significantly important. The other thing that we're trying to balance is many of those positions were expanded and created utilizing ESSER funding. So we are faced with a significant cliff with that funding as well that we're trying to balance and not also overcommit, which is why we are taking a look at trying to restructure because we're trying to help right the 26% loss and turnover with our teaching staff. So we knew we had to focus on retaining, right, and attracting, but also trying to reshift those dollars so that we can put as much of those dollars to that classroom, which is why we're looking at some of the things that's been on the agenda.
Yeah.
So I would say certainly it is, but we're also trying to make sure, because one of the things that we've heard is if that position is turning over, what support is that providing in the long term anyway? So that's one of the things that we've talked about, is trying to find that data to see, has that expansion, what has the data since we've expanded those resources done compared to those supports direct in the classroom.
Which is why, again, as in I hate to continue to sound like a broken record, but that's why that's one of my visionary perspectives, improve upon quality tier 1 instruction, because at that tier, if we're able to meet our mark, then it's going to reduce the need at the at tiers 2 and 3, and our supports at that point and our resources can then also be reallocated to continue to drill down further into our supports of those students that are at the highest need, but providing the professional development for our current tier 1 educators, as well as continuing to strengthen the support of them is our charge, and we're getting up for the text. Oh, I'm sorry, Attorney Cross, yes, sir.
I apologize, but I think I need to interject myself here. I would respectfully suggest that you consider a motion to amend your agenda for tonight's meeting to add a reconsideration of the matters under topic 3, public hearing on the proposed debt issuance. And I think I would like you to see you do that before anyone else leaves. I just talked to the lady who left, and she was not interested in that topic. But the more time that lapsed between the original consideration, which was after, I think, the exodus of the bullying and the science parents and team, I just think we're doing this as a backup if, in fact, the original vote was not valid and binding. I'm confident that if it wasn't, it's no action. So it's not like you're reconsidering something that you took final action on. It would be no action. So you have the right under your bylaws to amend the agenda with consent of a majority of those present. And it would be my recommendation that you do so. And I would respectfully suggest that you put it in fairly quickly.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we re-amend our agenda, in order to reconsider items 3.02, 3.03, and 3.04. Is that encompassing enough, Ron? Those are the three. now.
There'll be a representation of it, but I think everybody was here. It'll be very abbreviated.
Okay.
I have a motion from board member Stoltz. Need a second?
Second.
Second from member Zaleski. Any questions or comments? No, I need to take it. Sorry. Okay, so I have a motion on the table in a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay.
Nay. What was the motion? I mean, we were-
Just to re-amend the agenda.
Amend the agenda.
Okay, so we're just
amending
voting that we can
to
vote.
change the
Right.
So,
Okay.
so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay. Motion carries 6-0. So now, at this time, I'm going to suspend the regular business meeting of the school board. I'm looking at you, Ron, for am I doing this right?
You're fine. You will have to invite public comment again before you vote.
Okay, great. At this time, we will suspend the regular business meeting of the Board of School Trustees and declare the public meeting open on the proposed projects. And so at this time, the public hearing is open, and if you would like to speak. Do I need to have them each presented?
I think we need to have a presentation.
Yeah,
I mean, I think everyone is here for that, but I don't
Good.
want to assume that, and
Okay.
I'd rather we repeat it.
So 3.02, project resolution with.
Well, I think we need to actually back up
Okay.
even beyond that a little bit and go to 3.01 and actually go back through the overview of that script.
Okay.
And we can go quick.
And we,
Okay.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we're gonna try to summarize unless there are questions from, we feel like some things were already read into the record, but we feel like to, so that members Pickering and Stevens can have, although a lot of the information is going to be very similar to what was discussed during the first preliminary determination.
Okay, great. Okay, so the board is going to hold a project and preliminary hearing on the proposed projects. If you're interested in speaking at this hearing, please make sure you have signed the sign-in sheet at the back of the room. It should include your name and address. After the presentation by administration and its advisors, there'll be an opportunity for the public to make comments about the projects. At the hearing, we ask that each person limit their comments to 5 minutes and that the topic be limited to the proposed projects under consideration. The notice of this preliminary determination hearing was published as legally required. The first preliminary determination hearing was held on February 28, 2024. At this time, I'll ask the superintendent, Dr. Wright, or Attorney Cross to explain the purpose of this hearing.
Very close, if you don't mind.
Again, we have two purposes. The first being the 1028 hearing, there's a possibility that we'll spend more than $1 million in any one building. That requires a separate public hearing. Secondly, that we have, based on the debt structure we're considering, we have to have 2 public hearings on determination of whether or not we will go ahead and proceed with that.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll hear from CFO Jamie Bolzer about the process of determining and communicating the project to the community and the need for the project.
So as we look to be able to maximize our resources and reallocate those so that we can make sure that we are putting as much into the classrooms that we are able, we began looking at how we can reallocate the current funds that we're having from the education fund to the operations fund and offsetting the operations fund to the debt service. After we did an extensive data comparison to other schools throughout the state, we found that we had the lowest tax rate in the state of Indiana. And it was just becoming very limiting to make sure that we cared for and maintained our aging buildings. We began the discussions around August of 2023. It was presented at the budget hearing on September 27th of 2023. And all this material is attached for the public at each meeting. The budget adoption hearing on August 18th, 2023, we also discussed this. And then the projects and the amounts, we began talking. And there was consideration from 15, 20, up to 30 million for different projects on November 20th, December 13th, and then on into January 10th. We also narrowed the projects down based off of the higher pressing needs and looking at what we could offset from the operations fund over to debt service. Then we had the first preliminary hearing on February 28th, and that's what led us to today.
Thank you. We'll now hear from COO Karen Scalp about how the proposed projects met the needs as described by the CFO.
Okay, we're gonna go back through my presentation, but super fast. Great. Let's see back there. Thank you. Let's see. Okay, so hang on a second. I'll get this. Maybe.
Did you go with that?
We rushed.
You could 66, 66. So we have the presentation. We're gonna do the presentation. We're still in 3.5%.
And I'm starting to see that. Certain that's fine. No, I'm hoping that's not the case.
What?
She can say that, gentlemen.
I don't play a lot of it.
That's right.
Just looking the other direction.
I just don't get some water. There's another. Would you want some water?
No, we've got some, let's see.
Which one? It's in there. Oh, yeah, I got it up.
Okay, we're gonna go really fast through this 1028 hearing once again. So the rationale for the debt service issuance is to improve and enhance educational areas and environments, catch up deferred maintenance, and look ahead to proactive maintenance, and then shift expenses from operations to debt service. The educational impact is to improve comfort levels and learning environments, provide students with inviting, fun outdoor learning environments that also provide neighborhood play areas, improve aesthetics, and update routine maintenance, timely replacements, and facilities needed for extracurricular and PE areas. We've already talked about, and we will hear about the financials associated with the plan. The project plan includes infrastructure, mechanical systems, classroom, and athletic needs. The infrastructure is for parking lots and asphalt repair, including bus lanes, and then fencing. That would be painting, stretching, and replacements, and both of those will be district-wide. At Baxter, Star, and Vale, we look to improve playgrounds, and that may include painting or updating or replacing. And then roofing and facade will be worked at Richmond High School, Test Intermediate, and Fairview Elementary. Mechanical systems include Dennis and Baxter, and it is areas of the system that are HVAC. And then we hope to do restroom updates, primarily at RHS, but maybe somewhat district-wide, public address systems, district-wide, and then security cameras, district-wide as funds allow. Classroom and athletics, we're looking at flooring, painting, and general updates. The lockers at RHS on all 3 floors will be changed, and then the applied skills areas at the high school and possibly the intermediate and middle school, the funds allow. Just updating those areas with flooring, wall coverings, and then kind of changing the use of space to make it best for students and staff. The athletic areas, including PE use, would be returfing the Leibolt field at RHS, updating the RHS baseball and softball fields, as well as the associated grounds, Resurface the RHS track if funds allow, and exploring adding an extra lane and rebuilding the RHS tennis courts. The expected timelines for the projects would be proposed to close around 2026. I just wanted to mention again that due to supply chain issues with the delivery of equipment, it is possible that that would take a little longer than the normal 2 years because delivery times are 12 months to 18 months on some equipment. And then we also have a significant issue with market staffing needed to complete projects is really tight right now for vendors. So there's not enough people to do all the projects associated with all the funds that are out there right now. And that is what is going to happen in the facility side of things.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Stifel, our underwriter, and CFO Bolzer about how the proposed project will be financed, as well as information about the effect on the typical property taxpayer.
Good evening again. So we'll walk through some of these slides. On the first slide, anytime that we're looking at school corporations debt and layering in a new bond issue, the first thing we're going to look at is what are the current payments. So we have the 2018, 2020, and 2021 bonds there outstanding. And as you can see, the school has a huge drop off in their payments in 27, and then completely out of debt by 2029. And that correlates to the school corporation's debt service fund tax rate. It was just around 15 cents in 2024, with a slight dip in 25 and 26. And then as some of those payments drop off, you'll see the tax rate drop in 27, 28, and then we're completely out of debt by 2029. So layering in this new bond issue, the gray was just the bar graph that we saw on the previous page. In red would be a 15-year repayment of a $19,050,000 borrowing yet this year. That would result in a tax rate increase of just over 5 cents on the 2024 rate. We'll talk about the specifics here and what that means to a taxpayer here on the next couple slides. But it also allows for tax rate capacity beginning in 2027 at that specified rate if the school corporation has needs at that time. Of that $19,050,000 in grays, the big portion of that pie, and that's $18,374,000 would go towards hard and soft project costs. Conservative number on the cost of issuance of $342,000, and then in red is the capitalized interest. And again, that's just taking bond proceeds to pay the investors some of the interest that they are due for that first payment. If we did not do that, then that would increase the rate in that first year. We hope to minimize that. I've been assuming 5% interest rate on this. If you sold your bonds today, you're closer to 4%. So if you stay there whenever we issue the bonds, that number in red is going to come down pretty significantly. And hopefully we have a pretty conservative number on the professional fees as well. Anything that where that lessons just flows into that hard and soft project costs some more dollars for the school corporation for these projects. So the annual impact of a 6 cent increase on homesteads, I was showing closer to about 5.5, but this is what a 6 cent increase would look like. Within Richmond City, just under 7,700 parcels there, so that is where the vast majority of your homeowners are. That cap is $80,276. So any home that has a market value above that will not pay anything additionally due to the increase in the tax rate. So if you scroll down there, you'll see once you get to that 100,000 and above, there's 0% impact, and that's because they're at that 1% cap. The 50 and 75,000, that's what that annual impact would look like. When you shift right, those are the other townships and towns that make up Richmond schools. You'll see there's a lot less parcels there, and some of those are at their caps in certain points. Some are not in this chart. So like Boston Township in town, for example, a $200,000 home would be just under $59 annually, so just under $5 a month. When you shift right a little bit, you'll see that Spring Grove Town, their caps at $96,000. The Wing Townships at $150,000, $110,000. So about 70% of the homesteads are at their cap and would not see an impact because of this. Ms. Bolzer, I know you mentioned how many of the actual taxing districts with 88% of the parcels would be at their cap.
So of the 84% of our parcels, 89.9% are already at the cap. Would see no increase at all.
The maximum parameters here again, these are the maximum parameters. We can always come down from these, but we cannot go above these maximum numbers. So the maximum amount of the bonds, 19,050,000. The next two rows is really just what was in that pie chart there, with 676 going to professional fees, the cost of issuance and capitalized interest, remaining going towards hard and soft project costs. Maximum interest rate of 6%. And a total estimated interest cost of just over $9.5 million based on that 15-year term. The max payment the school corporation can make in a given year is $3 million. You simply divide that number by the school corporation's net assessed value. You get a tax rate impact of 0.1879. However, as the school corporation has debt falling off, as I showed on the second or third chart there, the net tax rate increase over the 2024 debt service rate is 0.0539. I have a couple of ratios down there at the bottom that the state requires us to put in there as well. And that's the school corporation's maximum annual payments as a percentage of their net assessed value. And that is 0.2254. And then the bottom row there's the direct and overlapping debt as a percentage of net assessed value. So that factors in your county, city, township, library, all of those other taxing districts, and divide that by the school corporation's net assessed value. And that's 1.8106. So that's all of my presentation. Happy to again answer any question from the board or the administration.
Any further questions?
Keeps getting better.
Practice makes perfect. Right?
Thank you again, Mr. Brugman. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We will now open the public hearing. Remember, if you'd like to speak, please sign in on the sheet, which is located with Bridget Hazelbaker at the back of the room.
Yeah. The resolutions have been read into the record, so I don't think that's necessary to get that again. But you do need, before you vote on any of them, I'll open up for public comment.
Okay. Do we have any? Okay, not. Great. Thank you to all who participated in the hearing. We appreciate your time and interest in the projects and the future of our community. Please note that this is just the first step in the legal process. The board will continue to work with the administration and its professionals to look for efficiencies to conserve tax dollars while meeting our educational needs. At this time, I'm asking for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Stoltz with the motion, Zaleski with a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 6-0. Sorry. We are at 3.02, the project resolution, Exhibit A with Jamie Bolzer.
So I'm not going to, as Mr. Cross mentioned, it's already been read and to detail into the record, which is what we need for the minutes. But before you is Exhibit A, project resolution to show the project's tax impact and the timing.
Move for approval.
Second. A motion from Zaleski, a second from Stoltz. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
I'll do a roll call. Nicole Stoltz.
Aye.
Zaleski.
Aye.
Weber.
Nay.
Brunton. Aye. Aaron Stevens.
No. Don't start anything, y'all. Aye.
Tim Pickering.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-1.
Point of order. You didn't offer the opportunity just now after we motion a second for a discussion. I have a question, or maybe it's for clarification.
Yes.
This allows us to go ahead with 20 million, and over the period of time, it allows us current debt that we have to run off, get rid of. I know that there had been discussion for 15 million, 20 million, 30 million. This allows us over time now with 20 million that we can come back for another 10 million over a period of time to reach our maximum amounts, so that we can, anything that may pop up in the next 2 or 3 years, that we can come back and get that, if I understand correctly.
As I understand, 2027 is what you.
That was depicted on the graph that Luke presented. Actually, to make sure the record's accurate, we're not talking 20 million, we're talking about 19 million.
19, yeah, the 20 million is that, but it's, and you kept using a little under, and I remember what the graph was, but we still have some leeway in
Correct.
the
So-
future.
So you have capacity in your levy beginning in 2027. So that could be a borrowing in 2026 or really even 25 potentially. But that gives you capacity for about 15 or 20 million, depending on where your assessed value and interest rates are at that time within this debt service tax.
Thank you. I'd asked that question before, about a month or so ago, and I just want to make sure that it was still the same out, on today's date.
Yes, sir.
Which is,
And as time goes by, your geo bonding authority will also be increasing, which is a simpler process, not as much potentially as opposed to a controlled project like this.
That's
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. 3.03 preliminary determination resolution exhibit B.
This resolution is just required when the school's planning to finance more than a certain amount at a given facility to present it for you as exhibit B for your approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion by Zaleski, second by Nicole Stoltz. Questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
No.
We'll take a roll call. Stoltz.
Aye.
Zaleski.
Aye.
Weber.
No.
Bratton, aye. Stevens.
Stevens, aye.
Pickering.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-1. 3.04, the declaration of official intent to reimburse expenditures, exhibit C.
Just briefly, we did have the original declaration to reimburse back in, I believe it was November, for your consideration. It was just set at a lower amount, trying to be highly conservative. This is just matching the other limits in the other resolutions to be consistent. So that, as Mrs. Scalf mentioned, we can continue the work and try to coordinate with the available labor resources that we have.
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion from Zaleski, a second from Stevens. Questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
No.
Take a roll call. Stoltz.
Aye.
Zaleski.
Aye.
Weber.
No.
Bratton. Aye. Stevens.
Aye.
Pickering.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-1. At this time, we'll reconvene our regular business meeting. And I believe we're at 4.03.
Yes, ma'am. President Button, trustees. You have something else?
No.
Oh, okay.
And Ron, you'll get back.
The resolution.
Ron, you'll get back with us if there's something that needs to be on a future agenda
Yes.
as far as the second hearing.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you will.
And we've been in communication with our bond counsel as well with Mr. Cross. So
I think what we're doing is trying to cover as many bases as possible, given the possible contingency that the first vote was not.
I understand. Yeah, I just.
Just in case something slipped. Just in case we have a foot around.
I mean, the presentations are getting better each time.
And briefly.
Second presentation, you guys.
So with that being said, again, Mr. Bruno, we appreciate your patience, sir. And definitely, if you go back, let them know how we do business here in Richmond when it comes to voting, science fair, and being accurate. That's what we're all about. Thank you, sir. Mr. Mark Fowler, our Chief of Secondary Education, is going to share his highlight and happening, followed by the rest of our calendar.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Wright. President Brunt. So the STEAM Academy lottery went live, and that was received very, very well. We had over 50 applicants in the first 24 hours. And I will provide some context to that so that there's a little bit of context. So that's 50 in totality, right, between 5, 6, 7, and 8. We are going to welcome a 5th grade cohort at 25. So that cohort will be a complete new cohort. We had applications wise 30 for 5th grade that we will have 25. We had 8 applications for the 6th grade cohort. We had 23 applications for next year's 7th grade cohort and 8 applications for next year's 8th grade. The other thing I would like to say is we did a recommitment letter for students who are currently in STEAM to see if they wanted to commit to another year. We have a current opening in 5th grade, 2 in 6th, 1 in 8th. So the numbers of the existing students in STEAM, I just want to be very clear that there's not 50 openings there. And then we also have 3 students who are in STEAM who qualified for logos who will be moving over. And those were all at a different grade level. So while the interest was awesome, we're going to welcome a group of 25. There is a lot of interest, especially in that 7th grade, current 6th, going to be 7th grade group. We had 23 applicants. So that was exciting. People were really, really excited about that, the interest. I also wanted to say 8 applicants are from out of district. And so we have 8 students who are not currently in Richmond Community Schools who would like to be part of the program. So that was also really, really encouraging. Other thing I wanted to mention is Tuesday, March 5th, Wednesday, March 6th, we sent juniors and seniors to the county fairgrounds. We sent over 500 students, 11th and 12th graders, to the job fair. That was wonderful. We had a lot of kids actually who, as they were leaving, were telling me they got jobs offered to them in the event. So kids were really excited. We had an army of kids in there, lots of buses. Our county partners were very, very excited. It's the most kids we've sent in a long, long time. I don't know how many of you are familiar, but you start where they give you basically based on your interests and kind of a quiz of what are you interested in, what would your proclivity be to a career, and then you get assigned a color. And so you can look for those booths that match your color as you go in. So it kind of narrows the focus for the students. And it was a really, really good time. And then Dr. Wright and I had the opportunity to attend the Student of the Year at the Boys and Girls Club. And 2 Richmond High School students were winners that evening. And so congratulations to Carly Phillips. She received the Jack Reed Scholarship. And then we also had Kalia Hurd, who was named the Youth of the Year and received a $1,000 scholarship. So we were able to attend that. That was really, really neat to be there for our students when they received that award. So it's great. Yes, sir.
Something minuscule, but maybe it's not. If President permission, if you could forward to me or us those students who are not continuing or didn't sign a recommitment to STEAM, if you get a reason why, could we know? Because I mean, if whether it be 1 or whether it be 20 who's not recommitting, it'd be interesting to find out why they're not doing it.
Yep. So I can answer that. Right. Those are not students who opted out. Those were students who moved away or who throughout the year chose that academically they were struggling, opened up a spot. Most of them were due to moving. Of every student, this is my understanding currently, each student who is in the cohorts who got a recommitment letter signed it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those one spot at a grade level could have been a student who moved.
All right. Thank you.
And or found that from their building to a STEAM academy that was not a great fit for them. At the semester, if students and parents came to us and said, "Hey, this is just we're struggling,"
okay.
We at the semester we let them move back, and I believe that was like 1 or 2 kids.
Thank
but of the students who received commitment letters, they all signed.
Thank you.
Yep.
I do think it is open until the 1st of
Correct.
April.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just there could be additional.
Yeah, I mean, it's not
right.
It's not closed.
It's
Yeah.
And STEAM's not supposed to be for everyone. I mean, I think that's
correct.
Yeah.
But what you did say, and that we had chat a little during the break, that we could possibly look at another session or a section now.
Correct. So I met with the Hibbard team this past week for just a routine staffing for what will next year look like. And one of the things we wanted to identify is it's great to know how many applied, but knowing what grade level those applications are coming in is super helpful, right? Because if they're evenly distributed, well, that's hard to add because you may be only adding 7 kids at a grade level. But because we see that it's 7th grade, next year's 7th grade, there's 23 applicants. One of the things that we talked about in that meeting is what would that look like in terms of could we share current staff that are at the building? Should we add something? And so we're having those conversations about what would an increased cohort look like, and where would we put them in that building and things like that, right? So it was a part of a larger conversation, but two
nice problems to have.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So the response has been very positive.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler. Next will be our Chief of Exceptional Learning, Mrs. Elizabeth Margaret.
Thank you, Dr. Wright. Good evening, board. My first highlight, I want to applaud the efforts of our 5 English language teachers who administered WIDA towards the end of February. So just think about, standardized testing. They have over 350 students for 5 teachers to assess. And it's not just one assessment, it's 4 because there's 4 domains to test. So they were rock stars in getting through that assessment with their students. And if you're not familiar with the WIDA assessment, it just plays a crucial role in understanding students' limited language proficiency, and then helps to tailor the instruction to meet their needs effectively. So I just wanted to give a shout out to them.
How many new students this year over last year? I mean, it's like 40 or 50, 40 new.
Over 100.
Over 100.
Mm-hmm. And a high percentage do not speak any English.
We're not new to this. This is a trend that we're seeing across the state, across the country. You would definitely need to address it.
And then my 2 happenings, I want to thank Mary Ann Avery for inviting me to attend the Build Better Together Workplace Culture and Community Service at Ivy Tech. Local businesses shared successful ways that they have been able to recruit, engage, and retain employees. So we had some great takeaways then to take back to our teams, because they have a large team within their applied skills department. So they wanted to find different ways to help support the culture and their employees within that department. And then we also had TBI Parent Workshop on February 22nd and 29th. It was a virtual training for the parents of Richmond High School, Dennis and Test. And we had 9 families attend both nights. And I wanted to give a shout out to Sam Hutton at the Boys and Girls Club. Their staff has been trained in TBRI. And so when they heard that we were training parents at those 3 buildings, they wanted to invite families in, break down any barriers parents may have to be able to attend the training, whether that was technology or childcare.
That's remarkable.
Yes.
And again, it's just a start, but it's a great start to assist parents with deregulating and being able to find those things that will work at home. Hopefully continue to strengthen our partnership with our parents.
And our phase 2 will also offer another parent workshop next year for the other schools. And so we'll now be able to invite the entire district to be able to participate.
Thank you, Mr. Marvel. Question? No. Mr. Jamie Bolzer, our Chief of Finance and Human Resources. Ma'am, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So on Tuesday, March 5th and Wednesday, March 6th, the Office of Human Resources participated in the Wayne County Chamber of Commerce Career Fair. I would also like to shout out to Rusty Hensley, Ray Wolfe, Stacy Mobs, Lisa Paw, and all the others involved in making the event quite a success. It was great to see RCS represented by so many students. So I was pleased to see Mark mentioning that, but also then our staff. We had great representation there. And I will say, I know that a lot of kids were offered, there were kids that were being offered positions and were connecting and making those good connections. So that was wonderful to be a part of. My happenings is the business office is busy working on an additional pay for Friday, March 15th. That will be the second distribution of the 2 equal installments of the $525 supplemental retention stipend. This stipend was awarded to teachers employed during the 22-23 school year who received a highly effective or an effective rating on their 22-23 completed performance evaluation, and was also employed as of October 1st and March 1st of this year for the second half of the equal installment. The second installment will be $262.50. And as was reported back when this was originally adopted back in the fall of last year, that will come from the ESSER 3 funds. In an effort to increase the support that the Office of Business Affairs and Human Resources provides to our staff, I will be periodically working remotely at each building during April and May. I will be available to meet with staff at their convenience throughout the day to answer questions or receive feedback and input. And I will say I put the schedule out, and I've been blown away by the great response. And I was pleased last year at the response as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
And also just to piggyback the exceptional job that Mrs. Wolpe, her administrative team, our counselors, and others did to assure those students
Yes.
there at the fairgrounds. I know that 2 years ago we had all roughly 12 to 15, and to know that we have more than 500 this year. Tremendous.
And just additional thing, one of the things that we did, we've been working very closely as we always have, but really trying to go out and be more proactive at some of the hiring fairs. We did find somebody who has secondary language of Spanish speaking, and knowing that high pressing need, we are already recruiting the individual. So we've been out also active, very much so out and trying to find different measures to make sure we are first in line when offering positions and being available to do so.
Does the chamber, are they still the ones that staff that event? Or, okay, so we don't do any of that. Okay, yeah.
So they coordinated all, yes.
Right.
Yeah,
I had the opportunity to, I was one of the volunteers at the careers fair a couple years ago. I think yeah.
Yes.
So, and it was amazing to see. That was not the year we had 15 to 12 or whatever. We had much more than that, but it was a great opportunity. It's like, look at this. These are employers. These are students. Let's connect the dots here. And yeah, so I'm glad.
And we had several of our student workers this last summer, and I think still continuing in some regard, and they're wonderful, doing wonderful for us. So.
Thank you, Mrs. Bolger. Scout.
Sorry, I just want to say thank you for the mobile office schedule. I think that's such a great idea. And I think, as board members, as we visit buildings too, we have people ask us questions when you're present. It just matters. It really does, because teachers are busy, staff are busy. And so to be able to have you there, thank you for that. So,
and I appreciate it, and I get back as much as from it as well. So I look forward to it. So thank you.
Mrs. Karen Scott, our Chief Operating Officer. The floor is yours, ma'am.
All right, so a week ago Saturday, we had a really great turnout, mostly parents and students at McBride and administrators, out working the field work, raking leaves, doing all kinds of stuff. And so it was really great. A picture of the baseball team is provided. They were out in full force. Since then, the softball team has also been out. Both teams have been working periodically throughout the week. And then I want to give a big shout out to Cindy and John Kate, who have been spending their afternoons and evenings after Cindy gets off work, really out there doing a great job helping us get things ready. We don't have a lot of time, so our community may not see a dramatic difference on day one when we open. However, we're doing a little bit as we go, and the priority is to get those fields ready for our kids. So it looks really good. I know that everyone is super tired tonight because we had a very busy day out there. Sod was delivered today. They were digging out the water lines because we had some issues with the water lines. And they're siting a press box. Like, everybody was all hands on deck today. And so just a huge thank you to all the people that have been involved, because it truly has taken a village to get us here. And very few of us have been able to be like just doing little bits. It's really been a lot for everybody. So a huge thank you to that. A huge thank you to our vendors. I can't tell you the response that I'm getting when vendors are like, when's your first game? We're going to get here sooner. So a roof is already going on, and they know that they want to be done for that first game. They have just provided a tremendous response. We had sod come in 3 days. And so, like, just everyone has really pitched in trying to make this happen for the kids. And so it's been a really great thing. And I hope that the community will see just what we've done. So it's been really fun. It has been, I am sure, more tiring for a lot of others than it is for me. And I know that I know all the work that they're putting in. And so just a huge thank you to everybody. And then, so next Saturday, the 23rd, is opening day for both the softball and the baseball teams at home. So don't hesitate to come out. The schedule is on the athletic page. Take a look at what's been done already. They are getting ready and they are so excited. So come out and support. The other fun thing is that we already have junior high teams out practicing. And we have not ever been able to do that on location at the same site as our varsity teams and our junior varsity teams. So that's super fun to watch and to see those younger kids get excited about what's to come. The other thing that I have that's super exciting, and you can take a look at the screen, please do not hesitate to visit our website. The returning student enrollment is ready. So if you are a current student at RCS and you are coming next year, which we hope everybody's coming back, and we even want students that used to be here or that have never been here to come, the returning student registration is now open. So if we scroll just a little bit, you'll see a green button that says open. You can click that link and get started. You'll go to forms and start filling it out. I did my student today. It's super easy. You just make sure that you click through all of the pages, update anything that's necessary. I want to say a huge, please make sure you have your email and your phone numbers in that section. That's how you get your alerts. That's how you get Parent Square. It's how you get messages when we go onto our delays or close. It is also how you use the transportation tracking system. So that information is super important. Please visit the website. If you're returning, please go there and get that done. The other exciting thing is that we have preschool and kindergarten registration coming soon. We'll have a roundup night in April, and all of our registrations will be open after that night. So we'll test the waters with kindergarten and preschool. We'll have it ready for them, and parents can register while they're here. And then all students, no matter if you go here or not, are welcome then to register and enroll then. One thing to note, this is the earliest that we have been able to roll this out in recent history, and maybe as long as I've ever been here. So it is much simpler than it has been. We have all the forms that you need in one place. You can upload your birth certificates for your students. Please make sure you do so, especially when you are in kindergarten and have not done that yet, or you are a brand new student. The other thing that's really nice is that if your student goes to Boys and Girls Club, Girls Inc., Y Care, all of those after school activities, it does require what we used to call a T10 form, and we now call an alternate transportation form. That now can be done as a part of the registration. You don't have to fill it out by hand and drop it by your school. So big improvements this year in our enrollment and registration process. A huge thank you to our technology department who took all of our wishes and made them real. And to Caden Matthews, who built this as quickly as he did to get this online and ready to go for our parents. So don't hesitate to visit it, check it out, do all of the stuff in there that you can do as a parent, and take advantage of that early registration now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Scout, for this job, and to think where we were to where we are now with regard to this process. Another major, another happening for our cabinet that we would like to extend a huge thank you in advance to you all as the Board of Trustees as your participation and involvement in my upcoming superintendent working groups. I know that we have two that are currently in motion and meeting soon to discuss not only policies but also the visionary perspective of the Bryan Station. So we definitely thank you. Outside of that, other questions, comments? If not, thank you.
I think Karen mentioned it, but I think when you look at the entire website, Alex Hazelbaker and his team have been working on a complete facelift or at least enhancements. So it's a little more user friendly.
Yeah, Mr. Hazelbaker and his team meeting with Mrs. Hazelbaker, meeting with Mrs. Scout at her leadership. It has all come together and they're getting to that user friendly feel is what we're after. And they're doing a tremendous job. So.
4.07 other discussion. It's not bad. Okay.
So, Kim and Kristen and I got to visit Vail since we last met. And speaking of WIDA, or am I saying that right?
Yes.
Okay. No, we got to see some of that testing actually take place. And so they were in the midst of doing that. Mrs. Vandervoort walked us through the building, and that was one of the components we got to actually see firsthand. And it was kind of like, oh, so this is what we're talking about. So it was great. Yeah, what did any thoughts or feedback that you guys got?
We learned about sharks, right? We did. They were learning about sharks in a kindergarten classroom.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I found it super interesting. Somehow, I've never been in Vale, the building. My grandma lived 2 blocks away. We play on the playground, but I didn't even know it was 2 stories. I don't know how, but it was just exciting to be in and just see the difference in school because I feel like it's a lot different than some of the other elementary schools. So, yeah, it was great to be there. We always, we were talking about preschool and they've got a big preschool class and how that's growing and yeah.
Any other discussion? Okay, 5.01 public commentary. The Board of School Trustees recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves in corporation matters. The board wants to ensure that the public feels welcome and that the concerns are answered in a timely, efficient manner. Do we have some speakers?
We have one speaker, Richmond Wilson.
And I'll go ahead and read my spiel here, but the maximum time for individual speakers is 5 minutes per person. The board expects personal decorum and factual information from the speaker. The president reserves the right to interrupt the speaker when the statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, and obscene, or if it interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting. Comments recognizing the work of staff and students are always welcome. However, critical remarks concerning specific school personnel or students are to be made through the complaint process available in policy 8130. School board members do not respond to public comments during the meeting. The public participant will receive a personal follow-up email from the board president within a week. Thank you.
Great. Hey,
Thank you, Brady.
I'm Adam Wilson. The kid that was here, that little man, that was my son. So he works really hard. He's twice exceptional. He's in the Locust program over at Hibbert. He did a science fair project, even though the school didn't help him much at all with that. That was all on his own. And I was really proud that both of the people that did that from our area got first place at their thing. And that was a whole bunch of people in Emmons auditorium. That wasn't like an easy thing. There were 15 other kids his age that he went for. Anyway, really proud of him, as I should be. So, because he did all that work, I'm going to come here and do the work for him. Okay, so we're going to talk football. Okay, we're going to talk 5th and 6th grade football. I was deep involved in 5th and 6th grade football this year. I was on text groups with the coach, tried to get a parent organization going for 5th and 6th grade football, was part of almost every decision that was made for the program. I was deep in it, and it was a train wreck from the beginning to the end. And it was the second year it was a train wreck. So I don't know. Some people here might not know what a bear crawl is, but some people do know what a bear crawl is. It's one of the hardest things that you can do in summertime heat. And it's where you get on all fours. And you go from one sideline to the other and you crawl on all fours back and forth. Now my kid started in August doing that. But he didn't get to do it out the fancy new stadium or whatever that we have at the high school. He did it at Test, where they didn't mow the lawn until maybe two months into him being there. And then when they did mow the lawn, they mowed it so low that it was dirt. So when he was out there, he was in the mud. And then they never painted lines on the field for him. So we had to come out before practice and put out cones for him so that he was able to do his drills and know how far a 10-yard was. Okay? Now, I understand we're here for education. My kid does that work. He has perfects, straight A's. He earned it, right? And so when he does that work for me, I'm going to show up to you and go, hey, where's it at? Because that wasn't right. And the problem isn't the people that are leading the programs. The problem is the investment that we're not making in those programs. We need to increase the amount of funds we give to these programs. And we need to know the value of having good educators that understand how to teach in the positions of coaching in these programs in 5th and 6th grade. The goal here, to me, is you hook kids on loving football in 5th and 6th grade. Then they kind of like it in 7th and 8th grade. And then by the time they're in high school, they like it so much they want to get good grades so that they stay in football. That's the deal. Not only that, it's great for the community. We only got to play 3 games. Did I mention that? We started in August. They got to play their first game in October. They had to play 3 games the whole season because nobody wants to play us. You know why nobody wants to play us? Because our athletic department has burned all the bridges with all the different leagues that you have to work with in this area. And nobody wants to talk to me. When I call them, they don't want to talk to me about us coming in there because they don't know who the next person's going to be that's going to be running that program. It's different every year. So what am I saying? I'm saying, hey, I want it to get better, and that's your guys' job to figure out that it needs to get better and whatever. But I'm passionate about it. I want to help. That's been what I've been saying for the last year and a half, is I'm here to help, and I've said that to Ben Whistle, and I've said that to Clay Bolzer, and I've said that to Trey, who ran the team. So I know those guys, and I'm not saying that they're not doing what they need to do. I'm saying that we need more resources. If we're not going to be able to play in a league, then we need to fund a 7v7 league of our own so that we can have 4 or 5 teams that can play each other just of ourselves. That, you know what that means? That means more kids get to play. More kids get to have a good time. And all that's huge wins for us. That means makes the 7th and 8th grade team better, makes the high school team better. And I know we want to have better scores. Sorry. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
very much.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is consent items, 6.01 through 6.05.
President Broughton and trustees come before you all to ask for approval of consent items 6.01 through 6.05 and the addendum attached to 6.02 as presented.
I move that we approve those items. I have a motion from Board Member Stoltz.
Second.
Second from Stevens. Any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 6-0. Item 7.01 under action items.
President Broughton, trustees, I'm going to ask that Mrs. Golder join us for action item 7.01 through, I believe, should I do 7.04? Or maybe not. 7.03. You'll be with us for a while.
I think just 2.
Floor is yours.
Before you are the donations. We have one to accept at this point for March 13th meeting from John and Cindy Kate for RHS Athletics for the softball program in the amount of $100. I would also like to second Mrs. Scout's sentiment that it's a good thing that they're not charging us their time, because those two have been at McBride Stadium around the clock. And so not only thank you for the donation, but also the many hours of time that they've provided.
Probably supplies that they've added while they're there.
I'm certain.
I move to approve 7.01 donations as presented.
Second.
Have a motion from Stevens and a second from Zaleski. Any questions or comments?
Coach Kate loves that field.
Yes.
Difficulty is able to contribute.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay. Vote passes 6-0. 7.02 personnel hiring and background checks.
Mrs. Bolt.
In front of you and presented for your approval is the personnel hiring and background report. The background check report for employment and offenses would not exclude the employees from employment pursuant to IC 20-26-5-11.2.
I move to approve 7.02 as presented.
Second.
Motion from Stevens, a second from Stoltz. Questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay. Vote passes 6-0. 7.03, the resolution authorizing the amendment to board RCS bylaw 0144.1.
And President Martin, along with trustees, I believe 7.03 and 7.04 will be you all's action items. And Attorney Cross from our opinion, I believe that it will seek a motion from one of the members and the process as we carry it out.
Okay. So at 7.03, I need a motion to authorize the amendment to the board bylaw regarding compensation of members of the Board of School Trustees as presented.
I'll move that we approve 7.03.
I need a second.
Second.
Second, Pickering. Questions or comments?
I understand the legislature has allowed for an increase in the stipend and paid for board members, but we still have some unfinished business on some of the reviews of salaries and whatnot. And I think as a fiscal body, I have to vote against looking at us before those are finished.
Other questions or comments?
I would like to know which ones are you feeling are unfinished? Because I feel like, just from my perspective, I feel like we have been level setting and we have been doing all of those things. And this would put us basically where the state is saying we should be. So, but I would be interested in knowing which ones.
Specifically administrators, what has not been addressed with the deeper dive. We did the original stipend in December. I believe it was December, with the understanding that there would be a deeper dive into those with level setting and whatnot in those, and that we still have some work to do.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I totally understand where you're coming from, Pete. I think it's, I don't look at it as it is adjusting the board compensation for, but we're just aligning it with a motion that it follows the state statute of what board members can receive. So, I definitely see, that point. But I just look at it more as, our compensation is dictated by the state of Indiana. So it's making it so it would ebb and flow with that statute.
I guess I'd rather keep on par, so to speak, rather than do like, oh wait, we need to catch up. That's been my thought on it. What were you gonna say, Aaron?
Is there a dollar amount?
On this first one, it just allows us to follow the IPS Board of School Commissioners, what the code, Indiana code allows. So it just allows the board to follow. There are no dollar amounts on this one.
I missed that one. Yeah.
No, it's next.
Let me.
Yeah,
I know
so
it's
this
next.
first part's
I
basically
would.
saying we're gonna
You know,
buy in line with what the state is saying.
I guess I really missed that one.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I have a motion on the floor in a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
Do roll call. Stoltz. Aye. Zaleski.
Nay.
Weber.
Nay.
Bratton. Aye. Aaron. Stevens.
Aye.
Pickering.
Aye.
So we have a 4-3. It passes 4-2 vote. Motion passes.
I add a caveat to it.
Sure.
And the reason. I don't believe in my tenure on this board that we've ever had a stipend increase. I do not recall that we've ever had
First time in 20 years.
And okay.
That's
And we often are perceived as making the same dollar amounts as councils or commissions or something with the benefits or so. And especially when it comes to an election time and recruiting people to run for the school board, They are completely amazed at the limited amount that we, by law, are permitted to make. And when I tell them, and I break it down into the number of meetings that we have every year, the hours that are spent, whether it be here in the boardroom or preparing for a meeting, it comes down to what we do is right about a penny an hour. And when I think about the time I've been on, and I didn't get into this position, I didn't run for this position to make money. We do what's right. I have no problem with, at this point, doing that. I still go with Member Zaleski's thought that even though it's not going to be a monumental amount that we may be able to receive, as a stipend for the board, I still think we have unfinished business that we have to get done to make sure that we take care of the employees. And if it had been any more than what it is, I definitely would have not been in favor of it.
Thank you. We'll move on to 7.04, amendment to policy 0144.1, compensation.
I move to approve 7.04, the amendment to that policy.
And this would be the first reading and send for a second reading.
I think there's a blank that requires the board's attention to complete, and that is the
That's right.
effective date
Yes.
under the interpretation that the ISBA has given, and I don't have any reason to dispute it. This could be made retroactive to any date from January 1, 2024 or subsequent or since. So that there probably needs to be there certainly needs to be completion of that before you vote on it.
So we need to have a discussion about the start date of that.
Since I voted in favor of it, my personal thought is start date would be effective as to today's date, not retroactive.
Yeah, my thought was, I mean, I could go either way. I do think there's some logic in making it retroactive based on the state, but also I could totally agree to.
We're paid in quarters.
Well, I
And
was
for
going
the
to say.
business office, I'm just guessing.
Well, hold on, let me finish.
Okay.
I was going to say, pushing it to July to just align with the next quarter, the start of the school year or something of that sense. So.
What were you going to say?
I'm good.
Yeah, I'd like to get away from retroactive pay for non-union professional staff in general. That's not at all what you see in the outside, working world. And so I think the best way to do is lead by example. And so I would either today or some date moving forward. Usually when you get a raise, it's not based on you will see that on your next pay stub. It's usually the language used. And so I've heard that be different.
So members Zaleski brought up a good point, which would be how difficult would it be to make it effective today as opposed to July 1st?
Of course, July 1st is a natural progression,
True.
right? In accordance with most raises, that's what you do is normally look a few months in advance of when the contractual period would start. Board members are a little different based off of when they're elected, but retro payments for 7 is a lot different than retro payments for 700. But there would be additional work, and I would just ask that we would be afforded enough opportunity to implement that if it were retro, or at least knowledge to be able to make sure that we meet any anticipated deadline. But with 7, it's not pressing. I would just, as long as I could provide them enough lead time to do that.
Is there a legal issue with Brad now in a
I would
RCS.
suggest, if that were the case, to just include in part of that there's no retro payment for anybody that's not in the current position. That's certainly very consistent with, we don't go back and provide a retro payment to anybody on any other member. And to that point, we're retro paying some of our hourly pay based off of their raise that was provided as of 7/1 as well, for like our hourly. So we're making sure that all of that retro pay is also correct, and any deduct days are retroactive as well. So there is some calculation to that, but it's pretty normal throughout schools because of the contractual.
I would agree with what Jimmy says. I think you have to be on the board at the time this increase is adopted, regardless of the date,
I
the
agree.
effective date that you choose to adopt it, retroactive or prospective.
Great question, though.
And I guess I agree with Weber that we don't, I'm not in favor of going all the way to January, just because I agree with setting precedent moving forward, but I'd be in favor of somewhere between July and January seems like today's date to me.
I like the idea of today's date. Again, obviously the people at the table would be the ones benefiting if we went retrospectively, but I don't think that's what our goal is. We're not trying to, I feel like that's kind of greedy of us a little bit. I think it's more that we're wanting to level set with this, with what the state is doing. And so therefore, with that in mind, today's date seems like a good way to go forward. So that's, yeah. So do we need to say something to that effect as far as,
I think,
because it sounds like most people are good with not doing retrospective.
Is that?
That's what I'm hearing.
Well, if you,
Right.
it would be helpful if you can agree on a date, whether you
Yes.
agree with the amendment to the bylaw or not is a separate issue, but at least everybody's.
I always say today's date payable in July because the quarter would be March through June. Is that?
So the 2,000 stipend amounts is not changing, that 500. So it would just be on any claim that's signed as of today moving forward, then would just reflect that new amount. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
At 500 per quarter.
Okay, so getting a feel that may be what we're going to do. So I need a motion for a first reading and send for second reading approval of the amendment to RCS policy 0144.1 compensation as presented with the effective date being March 13th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
So a motion from Stoltz, a second from Stevens. Questions and comments?
I'll just add, do I think it's right? Yes. As my voting record has indicated late, do I think this is where we need to spend resources? No. And so I won't support it to maintain my status quo.
And I will, just for full disclosure, and I know it'll be public record, but it is a $13 raise per special meeting, a $38 raise per school board meeting for school board members. And we have school board meetings 11 times a year, is that right? Approximately. So just to,
No,
for the
we
public.
have school board
School
meetings,
board meeting.
roughly 24.
I mean, the resolution.
Okay.
Work
and that's the-
meetings count.
Okay, work sessions count. Okay, good. Okay, so approximately 20 times a year. Yes. Okay. Okay, so we have a motion, a second. No other questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
Okay. Roll call. Stoltz. Aye. Zaleski.
Nay.
Weber.
Nay.
Broughton. Aye. Stevens.
Aye.
Pickering.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-2. Yes. 7.05 summer school.
President Brockton, trustees, I'm going to ask that Mr. Brett Baker rejoin us for action item 7.05, summer school with Mr. Baker.
Alrighty, it's recommended the Board of School Trustees approve the proposal for the RHS summer school session beginning on Tuesday, May 28th through Friday, June 21st, and K through 7 summer school sessions beginning Monday, June 3rd through Friday, June 28th, as presented. And then kindergarten booster summer school session will be Monday, July 22nd through Wednesday, July 31st.
Madam President, I move to approve 7.05, the summer school offerings as presented.
Second.
I think I have a motion from Stevens and a second from Zaleski. Questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay. Motion passes 6-0. 7.06, the annual renewal of food service management agreement.
President Barton, trustees, Mrs. Karen Scout will be with us for the next 2 action items. Mrs. Scout, the floor is yours, ma'am.
All right. Good evening again. Before you tonight is the year 4 of 4 renewal for the food service management agreement with Chartwells. This agreement contains necessary documentation in this approval that has to be submitted to the Indiana Department of Education. And this is the last year of the renewals, and then we will have to do a request for proposal later this year for the following school year. So before you tonight is the renewal, and you can see in the administrative content for the board some new programs that we'll be rolling out this spring and some work that we've been doing throughout the year. So before you tonight is the recommendation.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion from member Zaleski, a second from member Stevens. Any questions or comments?
Yes, there was some response to the quality issue, but I didn't receive any response from the recycle, reuse, reduce, reuse kind of initiative.
Did that
And
email
we are,
come to
Mrs.
me?
Scout, one of the things that we are,
It was discussed at the agenda meeting.
yes, the recycling, I know that in past practice, within our corporation, I believe it was attempted at one point, is that correct?
I'm sorry,
The
say.
Chartwells attempt the recycling at
So,
one particular point.
Yeah, well, we do a little bit. What I will say, and I have to be a little careful with conversation because part of why we can't do some of the recycling is that in our area, it isn't as available as what it is in some other areas. I have had a lot of conversation with the sanitary district about the restrictions and what they need in order for them to participate with us. It will require some extra staffing because the sorting requirements in the lunchrooms is a lot on a bigger scale. The high school does have a green club. Westview has a green or had a green club. I'm not sure that if they do this year or not, but I have been informed that unless we do recycling like one building, they can't pick it up. And so knowing that in our cafeteria, students have to be willing to sort, there's some educational needs that have to happen in order for us to make that the best it can be. We do have recycling containers that we can take out, but if they're not going to get picked up, and so it's kind of been a circular issue right now. What I will say is that to every extent possible, Chartwell's attempts to use biodegradable materials, sometimes it is a little bit more pricey to do that, but they do that because they know that it is important to this board. In order to do that. So you'll see paper boats instead of styrofoam. You will see things like that throughout. We try to use as recyclable products as possible. We use pumps for condiments when the DOE absolutely does not want us to do that because they are more green than the packets. And so we do make choices in the district to do as much as we can. With anything, we can always do better with it. But what I know is that we'll have to make some staffing adjustments in order to make that happen. And we'll have to work with the sanitary district to have a little more willingness to be able to pick it up. And so there have been challenges on that front. It's just challenges.
And then I know that one of the things that, as a former principal, we had success with, faced with some similar challenges. But one of the things we did have success with to at least begin the processes of retooling a school community centered around green and recycling is, if nothing else, gathering the fruit from each lunch cycle. And then repurposing that fruit throughout the course of the afternoon. Our students, and I believe we are currently doing that.
Yes, so we have share tables. We also make sure that there is not food waste. So if there, it's very rare that we have a ton of leftovers at the end of a day or whatever. We do work with area food pantries to make sure that there is a substantial amount that they can use and we can't, that is offered to them. So we do that, as much of that as we can. We also work with like our metal cans. So the fruit and the vegetables that come in metal cans, we do as much as we can to make sure that those are handled in as best a way as we can for recycling. So.
So what we'll do between now and our next board meeting next month is provide what a potential recycling program would look like and what it would take. So we'll have that,
I know when we went with Chartwells, I mean, the two things that come to mind first were breakfast in the classroom was their big driver because that's money in their pockets, but also they made lots of, they like to talk the recycling, reduce, reuse, and I don't think much has been done.
Well, what I will tell you is they absolutely want to do it. It is not a Chartwells issue. It is a Wayne County issue. So I'm just going to be very clear about the fact that they really like recycling programs and they would love to do more of it, but we have limitations in our area. The other part of it is our program and COVID made things really hard because we can't make money in COVID. Like you're not serving as many meals. Your meals were through waivers, so the funding was different. And so what I will say though too is about the funding, Chartwells doesn't get the funding we do. So anything that is profit is RCS profit. We pay them a management fee that is in the contract. It has not changed for 4 years. We agreed to that fee when we requested the proposal from them. They do not make a profit, we do. So what our goal has been is to increase participation, to make sure that quality gets where it was. Their supply chain issues have created some issues with quality of vendors. That is unfortunately nationwide. It's not just in Indiana. But what we want to do with any profit is to reserve it so that we can do cafeteria renovations. So there are things that we want to do with that. It's just that because of COVID and because of unexpected things like that, we haven't gotten to like accrue things until fairly recently. The recycling, I 100% agree they can do it. But if we can't get it done here, or if we can't, if you would like me to hire additional staff to sort the trash, we will do it if that is important. But it means less money goes to that bottom line, which slows down the time that we can do renovations. I am happy to tell them we can hire additional staff throughout the district to make that happen, but it will require that in order to meet the goals.
I think that's,
to do all of that.
I believe, Mr. Scout, that's something that of what we can prepare
Right.
for our board. We'll highlight, and in speaking with Chartwells, they can provide us with what they believe it would take, and then we can compare, despite some of the setbacks or some of the challenges, I should say.
I like that. I like just saying like, okay, if we do want to do this, this is what it would cost us. This is what it would look like. Also, like, I really do like the idea of just educating and kids are able to sort themselves, again, through layers of education. I understand that doesn't, and maybe a monitor that, later, whatever, I'll let you figure that out. The other thing, when we originally were talking with Chartwells, I don't know if, I guess it would just be probably Aaron and John and I that would remember this from 4 years ago. We had talked about, possibly utilizing those trays, and washing it. Is that completely off the table at this point, or is that an option? Because they were.
Yeah, so we have to hire a lot more staff if we do that.
Okay.
We have to change the setup in our
Right.
cafeterias at the elementary levels. They do not have the equipment. They
Well,
do not have the
I
space
think we were thinking more of
at the high school. Okay, so we would have to have some extra staff,
Right.
and we would have to change. It will be hard because you have to have time to wash,
Okay.
and so we would have to make sure that there is time or that we have an overabundance of trays to make it work between lunch times, so that you don't have to take
Right.
the time to wash in between times. It's possible.
Okay.
COVID, you couldn't. You
Right.
were not permitted to wash.
So I think we were like, well, we'll put that
Yeah,
conversation
I
on
will
pause.
say-
And here
yes.
it is, 2024.
And I'll evaluate what it takes for utilities because it will cost more to do that.
Right.
Probably because it's going to be it's not going to be a net zero.
Mhm.
I mean, utility bills are what they are. But we can definitely investigate it.
And Mr. Scout, to that point, what I'm also curious to know, because as Mrs. Stoltz references, at the high school, we have more mature, older students in which hopefully the educational process to teach upon them how to go about being responsible for their own tray. And but I'm curious also as we put the synopsis report together, making sure that we're also within the parameters of state law and state statute when it comes to cleanliness and the health code.
Well, I was gonna say, even if we're looking at those numbers, to really look at what Chartwells can offer as alternative paper bowls, like they're not cardboard. I don't know.
Yeah, they
like that.
Yeah.
But that in the long run might be cheaper, and then it's easier to recycle those.
They
But-
actually do that right now in most buildings.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, almost all buildings do it, and the only time that I'm aware of that they don't routinely is when they run out. So they keep some things, but we have tried to go to that, even though it's a little more expensive than like styrofoam would be, because it's been important to do that. Yeah.
Just two more points. One, there was no mentions of extra costs and this and that. It was like, we can do that. And I'm not saying anyone's at fault, but the expectations were set by Chartwells and then COVID came and everybody said, all right, you got to do single use stuff. So be it. But it just seems like that all went away. And then the other thing, that high school particularly is a learning lab. Kids, they need to go to class, but they also need to learn how to recycle and how to reduce and how to reuse things and how we act and how we behave in the hallways and in the cafeteria is how, when they see, Aaron, this Officer Stevens, it's a pleasant interaction because they're good citizens for the Wayne County area. And so I think it's imperative that we continue to move forward on some of these things. We have expectations for how people behave in society. And if we don't teach that in schools, I don't know where people do. So.
And remember, Weber, when I'm going to ask Mrs. Elsmeyer if we can pull the archival footage because of what Mr. Weber just referenced. One of the things that Mrs. Scout and Mrs. Bolzer, our cabinet, along with our building level leaders, we talk about time and again is that we're going to invest in something financially that we want definitely to see a return on our investment and holding accountable for what it is that they're stating that they're so whatever was stated back then, Ms. Elsmeyer, we can work together and pull that archival footage because I'd love to, and then go back and recycle those conversations.
But I have to revisit if we can't do it because we can't actually if there are things that we cannot actually take to the sanitary district in that manner for recycling, then we will be limited. And and so I do think that what I have seen is in every and it is hard to see that. It is hard to see it at your level because you don't see the absolute day-to-day nitty-gritty stuff. But they have made decisions on our behalf with the DOE that are not what the DOE recommends because this is important to you. And I know that it may not look like we have done as much as what we have thought that we could, but there have also been a lot of DOE restrictions on things that make it additionally difficult. So I want to tell you that they do strive. They really strive. I will say that education is key, and it's going to take a lot more than cafeteria workers to get students in that mode, because that's going to take a lot of people in the cafeteria.
That's a charge.
And it is a challenge, because their job is to make sure those kids can eat good food. And so it's our job to help with all the other pieces that make that happen. So we will work on that. We will get you some information. I apologize. I was not aware of that, or I would have had some information.
Mrs. Bowles, you want to interject?
Yeah, if I may. I was just real quickly pulling up, because these are conversations that we had when I was on the county council, because we have a special units that's called the Solid Waste Management District. It's a special district, which Wayne County also has, significantly different somewhat, and it looks like the approach, the budget for Howard County, which is very comparable in many regards, especially even the school districts. But the education component was built in specifically to that special taxing unit, and they have the taxing authority to be able to provide the resources for those educational programs. Ours had educational programs that would go out to every single school. They would even pay, use their revenue that they received through their taxing authority to be able to put into parameters of the special recycle boats. They would go and do the pickups of the recycling materials and compound that there at their site. So I think that that's something to maybe also consider. There's a authority with a special district that also has those parameters to be able to provide those resources as well. So it may be a little bit more of a bigger discussion with maybe county officials and that solid waste district.
I was going to add a few things. The teaching the kids part, I think they're very capable, even young kids. When we visit in cafeterias and we see them, they're very systematic with, dropping or picking up things. And I know at tests, which have been there during lunch several times, and someone wheels the trash can around. It's as simple to me as I think young kids can learn to do that. And I would not be interested in paying someone to sort recycling, because the goal is to teach this lifelong skill. Next is that it may cost more, but for me, the bigger picture is the environment. And so maybe it is going to cost us more, but it's definitely going to be worth, overall the importance of it. And then I know we're just talking about the cafeteria, but we can also think about, I knew when I was a teacher at Tifford, I led the collection of ink cartridges and recycling those, but also there's paper, there's a whole realm that we can look at when we think about recycling.
And I will to add to that. I know it's been one of our charges to look at even the paper production, to just limit it from the get-go and trying to streamline, what number of copies we're even using, and trying to just become more efficient, and even the need to reduce that way.
Any other questions or comments?
There are vendors besides Richmond Sanitary District. There would be additional costs, but it would be less than employees.
Any others? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the food services management agreement with Kurt Wells. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
I'm going to do a roll call. Stoltz.
Aye.
Zaleski.
Aye.
Weber.
Nay.
Bratton. Aye. Stevens.
Aye.
Pickering.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-1. 7.07.
President Button, trustees, I'm going to ask again that Mrs. Scout stay with us with regard to 7.07, bid for our just library.
Okay. Before you tonight is, excuse me. Are we okay? Okay. Is the recommendation to award the RHS roof bid. One note, in the post bid meeting, information came to light that the bid had an error in the calculation. So I would like to amend the recommendation in order to provide us with the best bid that we can have in order to complete the full project. I would ask that we amend the recommendation to reject the current bid and to re-advertise the RHS roof project under a rebid If approved, we would re-advertise either March 15th or March 16th in the Palladium item. And then we would also advertise either the 22nd or 23rd. And then we would have the bid opening April 2nd with the award of the bid being recommended back to the board at the first April meeting. So that is my request for an amendment at this time to this recommendation. The bids received, we only received one bid. We did put the information out regionally, so it was broadcast as far as it could be. And we did only receive one bid. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, so I need a motion to reject the current bid and to rebid the RHS library. So moved. Starts with the motion.
Second.
Stevens with the second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay. The motion passes 6-0. 8.0. Other discussion.
President Brunton, trustees, I'm going to share that our next upcoming meeting is April 10th. It is a work session. We'll be right here in the boardroom at 5:30. Following the April 10th board work session, we have a board scheduled meeting, regular business meeting on the 24th, and that meeting will begin at 4 p.m. So the April 24th, 2024 board meeting will begin at 4 p.m. so as to allow us to attend the professional development, neighboring county. Outside of that, on those dates, we'll continue to highlight the amazing things as well as the challenges and the charges that it takes.
I think of note for future meetings, we received 5 applications for filling the board position, and we'll be having interviews in this room next Wednesday at 4, I believe. Okay, I didn't have my calendar in front of me.
Yeah.
So, and then an installation, a vote to select one of those candidates, and installation the next day, if I remember correctly.
At noon.
Maybe.
Bell ringer.
I'm going to ask that Mrs. Bridget Hazelbaker, our coordinator of communications and marketing, be join us for the adjournment and bell ringer. As she's making her way back to the podium, I would just like to echo what Mr. Wilson, our public speaker, referenced. We are truly excited with our science fair winners. That will be very amazing feat that they reached in first place. Our bowling team, of course, have been consistent champions. Our celebration of kids, I think, continue to be just second. So, Hazelbaker, share some more.
Our Richmond High School Business Professionals of America had an awesome 2024 leadership conference in Indianapolis. We had 21 out of 27 competing students place in their events, with 14 members qualifying for the National Leadership Conference. We had 8 state champions. It was Charles Frederick, Hannah Steerley, Jacob George, Brad Bindenhall for 2 events, Lucy Couch, Chloe Chang, Gabriella Duarte, and Adrian Before. So hopefully we'll be celebrating them also here at one of our meetings. Thank you.
By the way, in the time that I had to leave, with the celebration that we have for the bowling team, the City of Richmond and the Richmond Police Department will be putting something together so that we give the bowling team a grand kickoff and send off when they leave the Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So,
That's great.
I would love that.
Okay, meeting adjourned.